Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call this meeting to order. I'm going to ask Councillor Crick to start us off with a short prayer.
Lord, we thank you for this beautiful day we're having today, and thank you for the MD of Bonnyville and this great place we have to live for Alberta and for our country that we live in. Lord, I pray that you give us wisdom today in this meeting. Pray your blessing on everyone that's here, on all the staff, and everyone that lives in the MD of Bonnyville. And just pray your blessing on the farmers and that you give them a good harvest this fall. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Just looking for any additions to the agenda.
Mr. Reeve?
Yes.
Yes, I have one addition I'd like to add, dust control on 34th Street, just on the east side of town here.
Al, where would you like to put that?
Thank you, Mr. Reeve. Members of Council, I would suggest 9.5.5, and I do have several additions to the agenda as well. So 9.5.4 would be the Bridge File Frog Lake tributary, and then again 9.5.5, Councillor Crick's request dust control on 34th Street. I also have 12.1 under closed session. Municipal land stakeholder engagement request. That will be under FOIP 24. And 12.2, council board and appointments, and that'll be under FOIP 20 and 24. So 9.4, Bridge File Frog Lake Tributary, 9.5.5, 34th Street Dust Control, 12.1, Municipal Land Stakeholder Engagement, and 12.2, council and board appointments.
Thank you. Any other additions? Yes, Councillor Flev.
Just a quick question. Where is 34th Street?
More generically known as Lover's Lane.
So 34th Street would be Town of Bonnyville?
Town of Bonnyville.
Okay, thanks.
Any other additions? Seeing none, I just need a motion to adopt the agenda. Thank you, Councillor Kraviak. I'll call for the vote. Hey, Josh, you got to vote.
Oh, whoops.
Sorry, Mr. Crick, Councillor Crick.
Sorry, guys.
That's all right. Okay, carried. Thank you. Looking to adopt the minutes of regular meeting council July 13th, 2022.
I move to adopt.
Okay, Councillor Slipchik moves. Any discussion? Seeing none, call for the vote. Thank you. Carried, thank you. I guess we're going to 6.1, development application number 2022 D134.
Good morning.
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 This is development application 2022-D-134. The applicant is Northeast Bulk Transportation Services Limited. The owner of the property is Michael and Karen Luciak. The applicant is applying for a natural resources extraction facility use for a Class 2 gravel pit. The property is located 1 mile east of Township Road 624 and Range Road 485 intersection, 8 miles north of the village of Glendon. Adjacent properties are a residential parcel, leased and owned agricultural quarter sections, and a quarter section remnant. The pit was discovered by municipal assessors and reported to administration. The landowner was made aware of the options to reclaim the lands or apply for the use. The operator of the pit applied for the use and provided a progressive reclamation plan. This plan provides information on current development and planned expansion It also provides a site assessment, operational plan, water management, aggregate processing, wildlife considerations, erosion and sediment control measures, dust and noise control, weed management, site management, and a reclamation plan. Hours of operation will be Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., Saturday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., and closed on Sundays. There will be no washing, crushing, or screening on site. A Class 2 pit that is under 5 hectares, including the pit, road, stockpiles, and associated facilities, does not require an approval under Alberta Environment and Parks. However, they do require to comply with the environmental protection guidelines pits and all components of the Water Act. Further, a reclamation certificate is required at the end of the life of the pit. The progressive reclamation plan was provided to demonstrate compliance with the guidelines and the reclamation plans. Referrals were sent to the municipality's Infrastructure Services and Public Service Safety Department on July 25th, 2022, and the applicant will be required to enter into a road use agreement. Adjacent landowner letters were sent out on July 25th, 2022, and we received no response. Recommendation for development application 2022-D-134 is approve the request for a natural resources extraction facility use for a Class 2 gravel pit within Northwest 2162-8 west of the 4th as a discretionary use pursuant to Part 6, Section 62 of the General Regulations, and Part 7, Section 69.2 of the Land Use Bylaw for Northeast Bulk Transportation Services on behalf of Michael and Karen Luciak with the following conditions. The pit shall be operated as per the submitted Progressive Reclamation Plan, shall comply with Noise Control Bylaw number 1657, shall comply with Nuisance Bylaw number 981, shall comply with all provincial and federal regulations, and shall enter into a road use agreement with the MD's Infrastructure Services Department.
Thank you. Yes, Deputy Reeve Fadeo.
I just have a question. So in regards to end of life of the pit, like who determines end of life?
The applicant,
The applicant does?
yes.
So to what stage? So then he has to reapply for the end of life, and then it's getting, how does that work? Could you explain that to us?
Sorry, say it again?
So could you, so the applicant is the one that determines end of life. How does he determine that?
Oh, they determine the use after the pit is reclaimed and gets the reclamation certificate. And in this case, it's just going to be bare land.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Mr. Deck,
Councilor Sire.
two questions. In your overhead, you show it as an existing gravel pit, so has it been operational for a while then, or what does that mean?
Yes. I do believe I have attached the executive summary to the application, and it has been operating since, oh, I'm sorry, it's not in the executive summary. But
I guess I'm not concerned about how long ago, I'm just curious that it actually is existing now, and they're applying for a permit for the pit?
correct. The municipal assessors went out to site, saw that it was operating, and the landowner was given the options to reclaim or apply for the permit to continue the use.
Okay, and then Councillor Fadea's question was a good one, but I'm not sure if it really got answered, because he may never reclaim it. He may just say it's always operational, right? And so then
No.
it gets sold through multiple, I mean, maybe it's not an issue, it is kind of an issue where no one ever says it's complete, so it never gets reclaimed? Just curious, kind of an interesting question.
I believe they actually have a plan for 5 more years.
Okay,
Yeah, that is in the reclamation plan, the specifics about when the plan will end its life.
okay, so that gives our folks a good kind of benchmark. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just looking for a motion. Yes. Councilor Kraviak makes a motion on behalf of council that council approves development application number 2022D134, a natural resource extraction facility used for a Class 2 gravel pit within Northwest 2162-8 west of the 4th M as discretionary use pursuant to Part 6, Section 62 of the General Regulations and Part 7, Section 69.2 of the Land Use Bylaw for Northeast Bulk Transportation Services Limited on behalf of Michael and Karen Luciak as per the recommendation presented. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Carried. On to 6.2.
This is Development Application 2022-D-157. The applicant is Jason Hardy. The owner is Weasel Creek Holding Limited. The applicant is applying for a major home business use to operate a mechanic business. The property is located 900 feet north of Range Road 452 and Township Road 621 intersection, 2.75 miles northwest of the hamlet of Fort Kent. Adjacent properties are residential parcels and quarter section remnants. The applicant would like to operate a mechanic business for non-commercial vehicles in an existing shop on a parcel which they are in the process of purchasing for their residents. They plan to operate Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., with 5 employees working on 2 to 5 passenger vehicles per week. The maximum number of customer vehicles on site will be 12. Any hazardous waste will be stored in an approved container until they are removed by a third party. Adjacent landowner letters were sent out on July 26, 2022, and we received no response. Recommendation for Development Application 2022-D-157 is approve the request for a major home business use for a mechanic business within Southwest 1162 5 west of the 4th as a discretionary use pursuant to Part 6, Section 47 of the General Regulations and Part 7, Section 69.2 of the Land Use Bylaw for Jason Hardy on behalf of Weasel Creek Holding Limited with the following conditions. No more than 15 vehicles, including personal, shall be stored on site at a time. Shall comply with Noise Control Bylaw number 1657. Shall comply with Nuisance Bylaw number 981. As per Section 47.3, Major Home Business, a major home business may utilize accessory buildings while still maintaining the residential use as the primary use of the site. The home business may employ up to 3 persons who do not live on the site or within the primary residence. A home business may not generate traffic uncharacteristic to the area. All required parking must be on site. Outsourced storage of materials, goods, or equipment on the site shall be directly related to the home business and at the discretion of the Development Authority may require screening or fencing. The display or placement of signs on the premises of a home business shall be restricted to one identification sign no larger than 1 square meter in area and may be indirectly illuminated. The home business shall not, in the opinion of the Development Authority, be a source of inconvenience, materially interfere with or affect the use, enjoyment, or value of neighboring properties by way of excessive noise, smoke, steam, odor, dust, vibration, or refuse matter which would not commonly be found in the neighborhood. At any time, any of the conditions for the home business have not, in the opinion of the Development Authority, been complied with. The Development Authority may issue a stop order pursuant to the provisions of the Municipal Government Act.
Thank you. It's a lot of talking. Deputy Reeve Fidev.
In Appendix B, like in your map where it says proposed mechanic business, and then just underneath of it, there's 3 parcels that are, looks like they're subdivided. Are those parcels currently developed at all?
Through the Reeve to Councillor Fidev. There are residences on the bottom 2, but the one that's directly adjacent is vacant, and the applicant actually discussed purchasing that property as well.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
Thank you. Just looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept option 1.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Slipchuk, for making this motion on behalf of council, that council approves development permit application number 2022 D157 as a major home business use for a mechanic business out of a existing shop located within Southwest 1162-5 west of the 4th M as discretionary use pursuant to Part 6, Section 47 of General Regulations and Part 7, Section 69.2 of the Land Use Bylaw for Jason Hardy on behalf of Weasel Creek Holding Limited as per the recommendation presented. Sorry about that. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, I'll call for the vote. Carried, thank you. On to 6.3.
Development application 2022-D-158. The applicant and owner is the MD of Bonnyville. The applicant is applying for a public utility use for a garbage and recycling bin site / public drop-off facility. The property is located half a mile south of Highway 55 on Range Road 433. Adjacent properties are the Riverbend Multi-Lot Subdivision MR Lot, 2 residential subdivisions, quarter sections, and remnants. The applicant would like to construct a 30-meter by 40-meter packed and gravelled pad site with 5 waste bins and 5 recycling bins, with space up to 8 for each. This use is included under the public utility definition in the Land Use Bylaw number 1667, and it is considered a public drop-off facility as per the Alberta Transfer Station Technical Guidance Manual. This site previously received an approval on May 12, 2022 on Development Permit 2022-D-046. The General Manager of Environmental and Protective Services withdrew the permit on June 4, 2022 to look for a more suitable location. A second application for this location was submitted on March 15, 2022. And due to concerns from landowners in the nearby multi-lot subdivision, the application was withdrawn prior to decision on March 23, 2022. Administration attempted an alternative location, but due to numerous concerns, the issue was presented to council, and administration was directed to develop the site at the above location, as it was determined that this site was the most suitable within the area. Adjacent landowner letters were sent out on August 2nd, 2022, and we received 6 letters of concern from affected landowners at the time of report. 6 letters, period. Summary of concerns are increased traffic from residents, waste transport trucks, and maintenance vehicles, so causing safety, noise, and wear and tear concerns, reckless traffic, decreased property values, loss of privacy / security due to residents accessing the site, smells and litter from the site, increased wildlife activity, waste attracting bears and other nuisance animals, disturbance of the peace as the site is accessible 24 hours a day, potential groundwater contamination concerns, the proximity to an existing transfer station at Hilda Lake, and lack of consultation with adjacent subdivision, First Nations, and Métis Association. Referrals were sent to the MD Infrastructure Services Department and Public Safety Department, with Infrastructure Services stating there are no concerns with this location. Recommendation for development application 2022-D-158 is to approve the request for a public utility use for a garbage and recycling bin site / public drop-off facility within Southwest 15633 west of the 4th Meridian as a discretionary use as per Part 6 of the General Regulations and Part 7, 69.2 of the Land Use Bylaw for the MD of Bonnyville, with the following conditions. Agricultural setbacks as per Section 69.6 of the Land Use Bylaw number 1667. The minimum setbacks shall be 38 meters from the front yard, 6 meters from the east side yard, rear yard 6 meters. Contact number to be posted on bin site for maintenance or concerns. All bins to be in good working order with attached lids. We have we have some people in attendance if you have questions for the Waste Services Department.
Okay, there's some people that want to speak. Correct?
Mr. Reeve, if you have questions for Waste staff, they do have some information, or if you are willing to make a motion to approve them to come up and speak, there are a couple residents as well that have signed in that have requested to address council regarding this item.
So does council want to hear the residents first? All right. All right, whoever signed up can come up and speak. Yes,
Mr. Reeve, that will require a motion and a vote of council.
looking for a motion? Okay. Councillor Swigert?
Yeah, Mr. Reeve, I'll make that motion that we allow residents to come up and speak.
All right, Councillor Swigert has made a motion that council approves Kevin and Ashley runs to address council in favor or oppose the agenda item 6.3 development application number 2022 D158 public utility. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Okay, carried. I guess we'll start in order. Kevin was first, so we'll bring Kevin up.
Thank you, council members, for letting me come up here. I do have a concern about these dumpsters being put here, is because when they were in the past at Riverhurst Hall, the people from City of Cold Lake use that lots, right? There's a lot of people that use Highway 55 to go to work from Cold Lake, and that was their dump site too. So what's going to happen with the dumpsters down by my place? It's going to be the exact same thing. The City of Cold Lake will be dropping off their dumpsters there at any time of night. They have shift work too, especially at the oil patch. I go to bed at 8:30, 9 o'clock, right? The quality of life I'm going to have with the amount of traffic that's coming through there, even in the evenings or at nighttime, right? What kind of lifestyle am I going to have down there? It was a nice, quiet road. When I first built my house down there, it was like almost a cow path, right? I saw the subdivision coming in there, right? The RV park was there, but it was only used in the summertime, and there was only a few people there, right? There has to be a better place for this, right? This is a residential area. It's a nice, quiet street. There's lots of kids on that road, right? Now we're introducing, I don't mind the traffic around our area because they know the area, but it's the City of Cold Lake and the traffic from there. You guys can't stop it. Brad can't stop it. It is what it is. We have to find a better location. Thanks for your time. Right?
Any questions?
Any questions, for sure?
Yes, Councillor Scarson.
So whenever the bins were moved from Riverhurst and it was, you were directed to go to Hilda Lake, how did that work out for you guys?
It was great for me because that's the way it was in the past when we first moved here. There was no dumpsters at Riverhurst Hall, right? We all went to Hilda Lake, right? We all knew the timings, and we adjusted our timings accordingly for that, right? So we recommended maybe, because there was talk about certain people didn't have access to Hilda Lake because of their shift work. So we suggested perhaps put some dumpsters outside of the dump, and they have access right there, then the dump's right there, right? And then it's away from everybody. We don't have to worry about it. Like, this is nothing new, right? I know it's more of a convenience for us to put dumpsters there for, you know, the residents of the MD of Bonnyville, but there, you know, there's only a couple of us that stand against it, right? We should have some kind of say in this.
Any other questions? Where do you live in that subdivision?
I don't live in the subdivision. I live down the road from there, so I would be the second last house before then. So I'd say probably, I want to say 40 meters to the access to that road. So definitely I'd be affected by it, right?
So you don't live in that estate?
No, I don't. I live past that, towards where the dumpsters are going.
Okay,
So there's only two houses, myself and Corey Irvin's house there.
Okay.
He'd be here, but he's out in Fort Max, so.
okay, well, I'm sure you're speaking on behalf of him as well.
Oh, yeah, I've heard it all, so.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you for your time.
Any other, thank you for coming in today, appreciate that.
Thank you.
Ashley?
Councilor Reeve, thank you for letting us speak today. I also have Mike Terleski, he also lives in the subdivision. So we are the 41 acre lots that are just outside on the same road with the same direct access onto Highway 433 onto Highway 55. So it is a dead-end road. So every vehicle that goes down there will be traveling it twice to go and dump their garbage and back. It is a cold mix road, so the weight of the trucks, the extra traffic will washboard the road. I didn't see anything in the plan about fencing of the dumpsters. Originally, they had said concrete pad, now it's gravel. I didn't see anything about Alberta Environment and the setbacks from the wells. Mr. Lashbrook there, his well is actually in his front yard. So there's an environmental restriction of the 600 meters. So we want to know if it's going to be placed properly, how it's going to be controlled, lit, and how the access is going to be controlled. We already had illegal dumping just down the road where people could see. Now we're going to put it in a dead-end road where people can't see, it's not lit. Like, it doesn't seem safe to me in general. And then my other questions, so the fencing, lighting, and control, we haven't actually had word how these changes and how these things are going to be addressed. I did note that they did decrease the speed in our subdivision to a 40. This illegal dumping is not going to stop. It's just going to move down our road. That's it. When it came to access to Hilda was fine. How come Hilda isn't open 24/7, the dumpsters like that, or Hilda has more access times? I mean, we could just easily not develop that site and just make Hilda more accessible. Mike, do you want to?
Hi, guys. I just got a few more questions. Along kind of what Ashley was saying, the Hilda Lake dump is locked up. It's only open, what, 3 days a week, I think it is. Is there a way that that could be opened more often? Could we have that open 24 hours a day? I'm assuming probably not. And my guess would be probably based on illegal dumping, which would be the same kind of issues we're gonna run into down our road. And we've seen it lots when it was stationed behind Riverhurst Hall. I've seen freezers, fridges being dropped off there, couches, oil containers being left there, stuff like that, right? They ended up really full, especially long weekends or anything like that before pickup could happen. So these are gonna be wide open to, you know, once the bins are overfilled, you're gonna have ravens, you're gonna have bears, everything in and out of there, scattering, making a mess. This new area, they're talking about not fencing it. You're gonna have that garbage blowing all over into everyone's yards. So in the July 13th council meeting, I think his name was Mr. Owen, had stated that he'd been getting complaints from residents about having to store their garbage. I'm just kind of wondering if anyone knows how many complaints were received on that? Because there was at the time a petition signed by 25 households, which would be roughly 50 residents, who were against this. So, I mean, was there more calls to put it down there than there was to have it removed from there? Like, what are the numbers? Has anyone actually looked into that? Another question I got, just kind of thinking back here, anyone who lives in town has to store their garbage for over a week before a garbage pickup comes. I don't see why it's an issue that we have to to wait for 3 days a week where the Hilda Lake is open. Yeah, so there was quite a few different concerns brought up. They've been brought up again today, so I'm not really going to get into that too much. In 2020, there was a survey done on the removal of the bin sites from Riverhurst Hall. Does anyone know the results of that survey? We never did get any results back or hear anything back from that survey that was issued. It'd be kind of nice to know. Some other options, something we've been talking about and thinking about is maybe a proposal with the Northern Lights gas station there at the roundabout. He's got a really big open area. Maybe you guys could come into some kind of a business agreement with him where maybe he gets his bins removed for free. I think there's a pretty big area there where this could be set up. It's right along the highway. This location that you guys are proposing is the closest location to Highway 55. as Kevin had mentioned, you get a lot of people coming in and out of Cool Lake, a lot of people using that dump station, would be using that dump station, just as they had at Riverhurst Hall. It wouldn't take long for word to get around that it was there. Some other suggestions were also maybe expanding the ones at Ethel Lake, the one at LaCorey, the one at Marie. Yeah, we're just looking at this and figuring there's probably a few more proposals and ideas I think that could be around. This just seems to be the easy option because you guys own the land, which, you know, I understand, but I'm sure there's some other options that could be put forth here. That's all I got, guys.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Just 1 second. Dan, can you, does anybody can address some of the questions they had from council here? Yeah, can you address, sorry? Sorry? Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Ashley and this fellow, first of all? No? Okay. Can you do your presentation now?
Okay, good morning, Council.
Morning.
I'll, just to address some of the immediate questions there, that Riverhurst survey that was done in 2020, so the results of that, there was 126 out of 600 respondents to that survey. 57% of respondents wanted a bigger site at or near the existing Riverhurst Hall site. 24% of those wanted, and another 24% wanted a bin site at the Hill to Lake landfill. So the majority of respondents to that survey requested the bin site at or near the hall. So I'll just start from the top here. So bin sites in the MD are classified as public drop-off facilities as per the Alberta Government's Alberta Transfer Station Technical Guidance Manual, which is found on the Alberta Government webpage. The waste bins are emptied a minimum of 3 times per week. Waste from these bins is hauled by an MD of Bonnyville waste collection vehicle to a transfer station. The waste from the transfer stations is hauled to a Class 2 landfill in Thorhild County, Alberta. Cardboard bins from the site are emptied 1 time per week. Plastic and paper bins are emptied every 3 to 4 weeks. Cleanup crews visit each site a minimum of 1 time per week. Therefore, this site will be visited a minimum of 5 times per week by waste services staff. Now, there were some emails that were sent in from the concerned residents, and I'll go through those concerns here. Regarding increased traffic causing deterioration. So waste collection vehicles travel township and range roads 6 days per week in the MD, gravel roads, cold mix roads, hot mix roads, all the like. Regarding foul smell and noise pollution, we have numerous bin sites, and you can see the handout that I handed out to everybody there, that are located within 300 meters of numerous residents. And specifically, North Shore Heights has 25 houses within 300 meters of the residents. Model Developments has 27 houses. Hillside Estates has 21 houses. Moose Meadows, 5 houses. Meadowview, 11 houses. Muriel Viewpoint, 8 houses. Druin, 19 houses, all located within 300 meters of the bin site. And we've not received any complaints about foul smell or noise pollution over the past 7 years when I've been in this role. Marie Lake, as for the concern regarding the site being, not noticeable to the public and, in a secluded area, we have Marie Lake, Muriel Viewpoint bin site, Franchier bin site, and Beaver Dam, which are located in remote locations, surrounded by bush, so that there are no sight lines to residences, and there isn't a steady stream of traffic traveling past these bin sites to notice. So it's not outside the ordinary. And there's a picture of Muriel Viewpoint Muriel Viewpoint bin site there. That was the last bin site that we constructed in 2019, and then we did pave it in 2020. And we don't have a chain link fence around that site. We have we put up some ag plastic fencing around the site just for optics, but when we supply enough bins to serve the needs of the residents, we don't end up with the overflowing bins. We don't end up with the garbage on the ground, bags of garbage stacked up. We do end up with the fridges, the freezers, the couches, but like I said, we have staff traveling around to the sites a minimum 5 times per week, cleaning up these items. So, like I said, when we have enough bins to address the needs, then we can mitigate these issues. Some of the other concerns Dust control was one concern that was put forth in an email. It's an oiled road on Range Road 433. We do have plans to address dust concerns on the access road on the property from Range Road 433. Regarding applications through Alberta Environment, they are not required as this is a public drop-off facility and not a transfer station, a waste storage facility, or a landfill. The next was no controls due to location. So all 30 existing bin sites are available 24 hours per day, 7 days per week for the public to drop off their materials. We mitigate issues by supplying enough bins to meet the needs of the site and by visiting the sites as required with waste collection vehicles and cleanup crews. There's another concern emailed in regarding us bending or breaking provincial regulations. So in response to that, provincial regulations are not being bent or broken to construct a public waste drop-off facility as per the Alberta government's webpage. Some more concerns in another email regarding traffic safety. Like I said, waste collection vehicles travel the road 6 days per week as it is into residential areas and on township and range roads. Regarding rural crime, which was brought up, I cannot speak to that issue, unfortunately. Next was regarding risk of water contamination. So currently in this time of year, we're collecting waste from 46 sites, which include our 30 bin sites plus campgrounds around the MD. 26 of these 46 public drop-off facilities are located within 1 mile of a lake or in campgrounds right next to the lake. Regarding animal control, like I said before, waste would be collected 3 times per week. Are we going to say that 100% chance there's not going to be any animals going to the site? No, we cannot, obviously. But when we remove the waste in a timely manner, the lids are closed, we can mitigate those issues, as we've had only 1 bear at a bin site this year, and that was over by French here. Other options we looked at: Riverhurst Hall, lack of available space on the site for bin site expansion. The second was the subdivision behind Riverhurst Hall, which we looked at in 2018, and then we looked at that again this spring. There is a public utility lot slated for Phase 3 in that subdivision, which is currently in Phase 1, and there is yet to be a development on that subdivision. So it would require significant financial investment to purchase property and construct a bin site. It's a low-lying area requiring brushing, and a large quantity of clay would be required to build up the site and an approach there. Third option was to look at rural property. Rural property options were looked at in 2020 in conjunction with infrastructure services and the potential of building a grader shop. Options ranged between $1 million and $1.6 million at the time, which were recommended, which did not happen. The fourth thing was just the Riverhurst bin site survey, which I mentioned earlier, and then the fifth was other MD-owned lands, and the nearest quarter section to the Riverhurst Hall, aside from the desired location here, is a quarter section 1 mile north of the traffic circle, which is 6.5 miles from the Riverhurst Hall. So, that would be sending people in the opposite direction once again. So.
Any questions? Yeah, Carson, then
Yeah, I have actually a couple questions, but I have also a statement. So I'm a guy who mentioned a lot of the bin sites that we have lots over in my area. I'm very close to one as well. There's almost zero issues with any of the bin sites that I'm near. I can tell you that right now. I don't smell them. I don't see bears. I don't. They're very clean. So you guys do excellent work with that. Secondly, I would like to hear. The one letter talked about consultation. Is that an issue at all? Like nothing to worry about there? Okay. And then lastly, what were some of the concerns with people having to go to Hilda Lake? And there was a few, I think, right?
Sure. So through the reef to Councillor Scarson, according to the Alberta government regulations, there is no duty to consult for a public drop-off facility. And your second question was in regards to the calls for the complaints from people. So we did receive 14 calls from residents talking about the distance to travel to Hilda Lake or to Marie Lake bin site, which is a 18-mile round trip from Riverhurst Hall after events there. And other concerns were having to store their waste they weren't gonna store it in their house or garage until they could get to the Hilda Lake landfill during business hours. So there's a total of 14 calls that were in favor of having some sort of bin site in the Riverhurst area.
Mr. Reeve?
Yeah, Deputy Reed, and then, yes, go ahead.
So you heard a lot of concerns about illegal dumping that's been going on in that area. How has that been addressed as far as where has it been, and has it been down at the end of the road, or where's the dumping been going on?
Through the Reeve to Councillor Scarson, to Councillor Fidave. Do you mean at the end of Range Road 433?
I don't know. I've just heard some comments about illegal dumping, so I'm just wondering if we had any.
To my
Any
knowledge, we
record of
haven't
that?
had any calls for regarding illegal dumping at the end of that Range Road 433. People dump their couches and their fridges off at all the bin site locations, but that's why we have staff going around to collect these items in a timely manner.
Councillor Snyder?
Yeah, Mr. Rowland, you actually brought up an interesting location for me that I hadn't realized, but you said a mile north of the traffic circle on the west side of 892. Looks like we own 2 quarters there, right off the highway. Were those, because that's way closer than Hilda Lake, and it's right off a major access road. Did we, well, I don't think we looked at it, at least I didn't.
Through the Reeve to Councillor Swaggart. So we didn't necessarily take a serious look at that. The second option would have been the Hilda Lake landfill, where it's already a developed location. The Hilda Lake landfill is 7 miles from the Riverhurst Hall. This site would be 6.5 miles, this other property over there, but it directs residents away from, it would send residents in the opposite direction of where they would be traveling to on a regular basis, which would be to Cold Lake for work or other activities. So.
No, I was just looking at it, though, it's like a mile north of the traffic circle instead of, well, half a mile south, going to the bin site that we've selected. I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Reed, members of council. I'd remind council that this is a decision on a development permit application, not a discussion about potential other sites. This is as a development authority, your decision today is on the development permit application in front of you.
Yeah, maybe this is for the CEO, or maybe, anyways, so what about if there was an option to set up this bin site and revisit in a year? Is that something we could consider?
Through the Reeve to members of council and to Councillor Scarson, if that's a condition you'd like to add to the development permit application, is to add a condition that the site be revisited in 365 days, 1 year, to determine usage, problems, et cetera, that could be a condition that could be attached to the development permit application approval.
And then I guess I just follow up with some of the residents. Is that something that we could consider to see how, if it is a problem? Because like I said, I live near bin sites, and I have zero issues with any of them that I see. So I think maybe after a year, if you've seen that it was working or not, we could revisit. Is that something, maybe some of you guys would be interested in?
I'm not at all opposed to that. What I'm opposed to is the traffic of Cold Lake. We still haven't addressed that yet. That's the low cost traffic. We haven't addressed that concern yet. Because once they find out it's down there, it's gonna be the same show we had at Riverhurst Hall. That's my concern. That has not been addressed. Whether it's tomorrow or a year from now, it's still gonna be the same with the traffic. That's the concern.
Mr. Owen had also stated there that there was 14 complaints of wanting something beside some of this a little bit closer. We've got in 2020, petition that was signed by at least 25 households that doesn't want it. So I'm just looking at numbers. We've got 25 households, 2 people per household. That's 50 people that don't want it, but that location that we signed a petition, and 14 complaints of people that want it there. So if we want something closer, they're not even saying they want it there, they're just saying they want something closer,
Yeah, just one. So when I look on the map by Hilda Lake, is where that T is where the transfer, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Deputy Reeve today.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
Okay. I know we've talked about this time and time again, and let's just, I'd like to make the motion to, I guess, option number 1 to approve the recommendation as presented.
okay, we have a motion that Deputy Reeve today on behalf of council approves development permit application number 2022-D158, a public utility use for garbage and recycling and site public drop-off facility within Southwest 1563, 3 west of the 4th End as discretionary use as per Part 6 General Regulations and Part 7, Section 69.2 of the land use bylaw for the MD of Bonnyville as per recommendation presented. Any discussion on this motion? Councilor Craigie?
Counselor, thank you, Mr. Reeve. Do you want to add maybe have a trial for a year and see how it goes, or no?
I think the major concern was Coal Lake traffic is a part of it. Again, I don't know how that's, how that's going to work. I know that the one at Cherry Grove, just because it's just a little bit out of the way, people don't seem to be, using it a lot. On 55, I mean, there is, where it was right at Riverhurst, a lot of people were parking there as well overnight. So, it's easy for them to be dumping it. I'm not sure if the extra going a little bit further south is going to deter that. I think it might, but I really don't know. I know our guys do a really good job with picking up stuff, and they're there 5 days a week. So if there is a concern about not having enough bins, they do add more bins to it all the time. And I know it over at Marie Lake, when they fixed it up, the Marie Lake one did get used a lot, and there was some excess of use, but we added two more bin sites, and it just totally fixed that up, and it's a great site now.
Any other discussion on that? Me? Sorry. Any other discussion on this motion? Comments, anything? Okay, I'm going to call for the vote then. Carried. Thank you. On to 6.4.
This is development application 2022-D-162. The owners and applicant are Dean and Melody Baskerville. The applicant is applying for an addition to a single-family dwelling for a secondary suite. The property is located 2,000 feet north of Highway 28 and Range Road 425 intersection, 3.7 miles west of the hamlet of Beaver Crossing. Adjacent properties are residential parcels, a quarter section, and remnants. The applicant would like to construct an addition to have a 40 by 20 self-contained secondary suite with 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and a living/dining room with kitchen. This complies with Section 59 of the Land Use Bylaw for secondary suites. Alberta Transportation Permit is pending. Adjacent landowner letters were sent out on August 2nd, and we received no concerns. Recommendation for development application number 2022-D-162 is approve the request for an addition to a single-family dwelling for a secondary suite within Southeast 1862-2 west of the 4th as a discretionary use pursuant to Part 6, Section 59 of the General Regulations, and Part 7, Section 69.2 of the Land Use Bylaw for Dean and Melody Baskerville with the following conditions. As per section 69 of the land use bylaw, the minimum setback shall be front yard 38 meters from the center line of the adjacent public road, side yard 6 meters, rear yard 6 meters. An approved building permit is required, shall obtain applicable electrical, gas, plumbing, and sewer permits as required by safety codes, Alberta safety codes. The suite can contain up to 4 rooms, have a minimum floor area of 500 square feet and a maximum floor area of 1,076 square feet, and Alberta transportation permit is required.
Okay, thank you. Looking for a motion? Councillor Slipchuk?
I'll make a motion for option 1.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Slipchuk, on making a motion on behalf of council that council approves development permit application number 2022 D162, in addition to a single-family dwelling for a secondary suite located within Southeast 1862 2 west of the 4th M as discretionary use pursuant to Part 6, Section 59 and Part 7, Section 69.2 of the land use bylaw for Dean and Melody Beckersville as per recommendation presented. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. That's Tim. Yep. Yes. Yep. 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 Just throw your hand up, okay? Carried. That worked. Okay, we're going to take a break before 10 o'clock. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. We have a public hearing this morning. Just going to read this before we begin with the public hearing. I'd like to remind those who wish to address any of the public hearings on today's agenda to register your name on the speakers list at the entrance of the council chambers. I would also like to outline the following for this public hearing. We will begin with staff report from administration, followed by questions of administration from council. We will then call upon members of the public who wish to speak in support of the bylaw, followed to wish to speak in opposition of the bylaw. Council may ask questions of the public presenter during this time only. Finally, we will entertain any final questions of administration from council before closing the public hearing. I need a motion to go into public hearing.
I'll make that motion, please.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve Fideo, for making the motion to go into public hearing. Any discussion on this? I'll call for the vote. Carried. Thank you. Morning.
Good morning. So this is a public hearing for bylaw number 1802 to repeal a road plan closure and sale pursuant to Part 7, Section 230 of the Municipal Government Act. Before giving second reading, council must hold a public hearing in order to repeal a bylaw. It must be made in the same way as the original bylaw was passed. This original bylaw included a first reading and a public hearing before it proceeded to second and third reading. So administration has prepared bylaw number 1802 to repeal the current MD bylaw number 1403 from 2009, which at the request of an adjacent landowner was proposed and approved for closure and sale of approximately 7.8 acre portion of road plans 752, 0625, and 912, 1531 as shown on Appendix B, between the northeast of 23 and the northwest of 24, 61 of 1. The MD received notification from the original applicant in 2010 that he no longer wished to proceed with the purchase of the portions of road plans that were closed. A survey was never completed, no payment was received from the applicant, nor was it registered at land titles. Alberta Transportation was consulted in October of 2021 regarding repealing this bylaw, and they indicated they had no objections at all. Council did give first reading to bylaw number 1802 on July 13th, 2022, and 30-parter referrals were mailed out, and newspaper ads were published on July 26th and August 2nd. We have received no responses submitted to administration.
Okay, thank you. Do we have it? We take questions now?
Sure, if there's any questions.
Anybody have any questions? There is no written submissions? And
There are
there's
none.
no one here to speak on for behalf? Do I need to ask anyway? Or if there's no one registered?
Mr. Reeve, can I
Yes.
ask a question? Yeah, just, what was the original request to close it and sell it? What was the reasoning for that? What was,
Yeah, the original request back in 2009 was to close it, to create a parcel, and then they wanted to purchase it from the municipality. Once it was closed, the applicant found out how much it would cost to actually survey it and get it registered, and decided against the purchase of it.
interesting, okay. So, I mean, can you just follow up a bit? When it was, if it was going to be closed and sold, would that close off Township Road 614 that
A
runs
small
across the
portion
top
of it in the middle of it, yes,
So it would close off that section?
correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any final questions? Seeing none, I probably need a motion to close public hearing then. Thank you, Lisa.
I make a motion to close public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Slipchuk, he makes a motion that the public hearing be closed at 10:10 a.m. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, call for the vote. Carried, thank you. I think our delegation is here for 10:15 for Bonneville Search and Rescue Society. Please come on up.
Thank you for your time today. It's on, okay.
It's on.
Okay, perfect.
Since 1991,
Presented to you is
non-paid
a video presentation. I wish to go over to explain. I'm a visual type of learner myself, and created this week.
professional search and rescue volunteers have provided highly specialized assistance to lost or injured persons, as well as province-wide emergency support in the non-paid professional search and rescue volunteers have provided highly specialized assistance to lost or injured persons, as well as province-wide emergency support. Event of a major disaster. SAR Alberta is an entirely volunteer-led, non-profit organization with over 1,400 highly skilled, unpaid professionals in 35 teams across 6 regions. Each year, Search and Rescue supports provincial and regional police, fire, emergency response, security, and emergency medical services. Most of our teams receive limited or no government funding. Team members absorb the cost of their personal equipment, time off work, and specialized training. To support Search and Rescue Alberta continuing as an indispensable resource for our province's emergency response services, we seek effective partnerships with key stakeholders like you to ensure the sustainability of the organization. Our goal is to develop greater service consistency across the province, strengthen ties with tasking agencies, and build relationships with Indigenous and other communities. It's these partnerships that will allow Search and Rescue Alberta to continue its mission of finding and rescuing lost or injured persons and providing province-wide emergency support in the event of a disaster. We are Search and Rescue Alberta.
Clicker ain't working?
Nope. It's probably the user, not the clicker. Regardless,
Oh, the girls will get,
yeah.
the ladies.
Okay. Well, we'll do that. A
There
little
we
bit
go.
about us. Oh, perfect. I can do the mouse bar. Yeah. Ooh. Here we go. Again, just to reestablish, we've been around in the Bonnyville Lakeland area since 1998. We currently have about approximately 14 members, active and support members that are included. The active members are ones that are qualified to go on active searches. Non-operational members or auxiliary members are ones that support our operations. For instance, my wife helps me plan social media posts, so if you see social media posts, that's usually my wife's behind that, telling me what to do and how to make it nice to say. We serve the Bonnyville RCMP detachment boundaries as Bonnyville Search and Rescue. There is another Cold Lake. Cold Lake Search and Rescue serves the Cold Lake RCMP detachment boundaries, and that's common across Alberta. How we organize ourselves is through RCMP boundaries, because they are the primary tasking agency. The agency that is responsible for ground search and rescue in Canada is RCMP or local police forces across the country. As such, we are trained, we are professional volunteer responders. We are trained through CSA. Canadian Standards Association sets the standard of what a SAR responder does, what a team leader and search managers do, and what they can do and qualify for. We also try to have the highest level of first aid that we can. Our typical members will have the standard first aid. Many of us have an advanced wildlife first aid that allows us to respond to medical emergencies in rural areas and in dense forest or other areas. And we are 100% nonprofit and volunteer based. That is not only on the local level, but also provincially and federally. So Bonnyville Search and Rescue is governed by SAR Alberta, and SAR Alberta is governed by an organization called Canadian Search and Responders Volunteer Association of Canada, and they are federally responsible for all searchers in Canada, and then SAR Alberta is responsible for all searchers within Alberta. And myself, as president, is responsible for all the searchers within Bonnyville Search and Rescue. I'll just let this go through. As such, because we are volunteers based, we are 100% reliant on donations and time of people around us, businesses, councils, and so forth, and the goodwill of others, of us and ourselves. Our equipment, my personal equipment that I take into the field every time I get a call out cost me about $2,000 out of my own pocket. That's not including the jackets that SAR Alberta fundraises for and supplies that we buy ourselves. We do get a training grant from the province, but that funding, it varies year to year and is never guaranteed. We apply through a grant, and some years we are able to receive that grant, and other years we are not. And that only supplements our training costs and does not cover the entirety of that training cost that it takes. A search, to give you an idea, a volunteer searcher, if this thing goes up, takes about, the course to become a SAR responder lasts about 40 hours of training, and that's the beginning, your basic SAR responder. SAR team managers take a 5-day course, and SAR team leaders usually take a weekend course to cover their training, to learn and to practice all the skills that they learn. We as Bonnyville Search and Rescue, our typical call-outs is about 2 to 4 per year. This summer we've been really fairly busy. We've had 3. We've had 2 mutual call assists on Cold Lake themselves, assisting Cold Lake Search and Rescue, and 1 that we assisted ourselves within the town, Hewen and the town of Bonnyville this summer. So this summer's been a bit busier for us. We are always available 24/7, 365 days a year in any and all weather conditions. Regardless of when the RCMP phones, we go. And that's the base of it. We do, and as part of our mandate and part of what we do is try to prevent ourselves from going out, so we try and do as much outreach as we can to schools and community groups and the general public through social media and presenting ourselves in front of councils in our areas so that we can, help minimize the calls, because, we love to work ourselves out of a job sometimes, but also just to make sure that people are aware of who we are and what we do and why we respond. As such, we are always looking for volunteers, so if you would like to volunteer, please contact myself. You can reach us through our Facebook page, and I can sign you up. Our current equipment is a boat, an ATV, and a command unit, as well as a trailer, a short enclosed trailer, all of which were donated or purchased through donations. And all of it, and that includes our radios and our GPSs and everything else. Many of our major equipment that we have has been donated over the course of the years. However, just like some of my volunteers, our command unit, for instance, is a 1987 piece of machinery, an old converted moving van, and it's worn out. And just like some of my volunteers are getting up there in age, in their 60s, and one of my lead team managers, he turned 70 recently, so they're like our equipment, it's showing out its age. Right now, our strategic priorities is definitely to have a home. Right now, currently, all of our equipment is stored on members' houses, which does pose a risk to our response times when the RCMP does call, because we do have to travel to a member's home to pick up the gear if that member's not able to respond, and then respond to the scene. Whereas if we were able to have a centralized response location, then we could reduce that response time to a call. Please feel free to ask any questions if you have any at this point.
Yes, Deputy Reeve Fadeev.
Yeah, first of all, thanks very much for what you do. Have you ever approached BRFA, Bonnyville Regional Fire Authority, as far as maybe partnering along with them in regards to a place to stay? They have a sizable new building that they're going to be in with some outbuildings that are there, and I think it'd be a wonderful place to call home if you maybe talk to them. I'm not sure how that would work, but I think it'll be a phenomenal place. So instead of having your stuff in the snow and everything else, it could be in dry storage versus being everything else. And being that it's a gated, it's safe, it would be someplace that you could have your equipment in. I think it's a great opportunity to possibly partner with them as far as that goes, right? So
yeah,
that's just a thought.
I appreciate that.
Have you contacted them at all, or?
My schedule has been complex.
Okay.
I'm volunteer. I work.
Yeah,
I'm
for sure.
currently
Yeah,
working.
yeah.
So, and I have a young family at home. So
Get it.
Yes.
I'm living the dream.
That is, living the dream. It is and like I say, we are 100% volunteers. So everything we do, even coming in front of you today, is time off work, and depending on schedule. So contacting and sitting in front of the Regional Fire Authority, even the RCMP, sometimes at times it is a complex scheduling because of my schedule and their schedule. Sometimes we
for sure. I think
Reeve
Kalinsky could probably help you out with.
We already have talks.
Sounds good. Perfect.
Councillor
Well,
Swiger.
thanks for the presentation. Interesting. You made the comment that the RCMP we'll call you out, and I think you said they're responsible for search and rescue, kind of as one of their mandates, but I'm surprised to hear that they have no budget for search and rescue. So that's interesting, and there was a news one just a week or two ago about a young guy that actually drowned at it was an outdoor kind of park or whatever, and there was a pond on the park, and he drowned, and search and rescue they were having a really hard time. It took 3 days for the search and rescue guys to get together because they're underfunded and spread throughout the province or whatever, and so yeah, I just hope we can do better. But thanks for your work.
Thank you.
Councillor Slipchuk?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for coming today, Andrew, what you presented. But I think this is something that we need to look into, talk about down the road here. Get them looking into, see if we can find them a home to put their equipment in, and maybe it'll help you guys even get more volunteers. But as well, with all the activity we're having going on with more hunters, more ATVs, all the trail use, I believe this is something that is a good safety and benefit for the community, for residents, and I'd like to see us to consider something and have more further talks on it down the road here.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, I thank you for coming in, and your presentation was wonderful, and you guys have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Deputy Reeve-Fidel?
CEO Hogan, in regards to maybe putting this on the 2023 budget deliberations, part of it would be nice to see in whatever way possible, so we can have a discussion towards that.
Through the Reeve to Council and to Deputy Fidel, absolutely. We have a fairly robust today community grants program, and I'll certainly get the general manager to reach out to the search and rescue. I'm sure the search and rescue group probably qualifies for some of our grant programs, and we'll certainly point them in that direction, and we can certainly add that to a discussion as we start moving into the 2023 budget.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Okay, so I think we can go to 7.1.
Mr. Reeve?
Yep, sorry.
Sorry, if we could just get a motion.
To accept their, yep.
And if you like, your direction can be to bring it back to 2023 budget deliberations instead.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I always seem to forget that part.
I'll make the motion to accept that as information. And I think the direction's there to Mr. Hogan to do that, so I don't think we need to put that in the minutes, I don't think.
All right. Thank you, Deputy Reeve-Fidel makes a motion on behalf of council that council accepts the presentation by the Bonnyville Search and Rescue Society as information, and furthermore directs administration to bring their request for funding support to the 2023 budget deliberations for consideration. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Sorry, Steph, I didn't. It's carried. Thank you. Now we'll go to 7.1 subdivision application.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Subdivision application 2022-S-008 for part of Northwest 2764 west of the 4th Meridian, plan number 222-0251, Block 1, Lot 6. The proposed application is to subdivide one 10-acre parcel from an 80-acre agricultural parcel. Administration has received and is presenting to council for council's consideration where the applicant is proposing to subdivide one 10-acre parcel from an 80-acre agricultural parcel shown on the map attached as Appendix A. The subject site is located 1 mile northeast of Bear Trap Lake on Range Road 443 and Township Road 605. Notification of the proposed subdivision was mailed to referral agencies and adjacent landowners, and no concerns have been received. The application meets all considerations of the Municipal Government Act, subdivision and development regulations, and the Lower Athabasca Regional Plan, Municipal Development Plan, the Land Use Bylaw, and therefore we recommend it be approved as per conditions. Number 1, legal and physical access to proposed parcels and remnant, cash in lieu of municipal reserves, real property report, sewer compliance with Alberta safety codes, and taxes to be paid in full.
Thank you. Looking for a motion?
I'll make the motion for option 1 that we approve the subdivision.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Crick, for making a motion on behalf of council that council approves subdivision application number 2022 S008 to subdivide 1 10-acre parcel from an 80-acre agricultural parcel in the east half of Northwest 2764 west of the 4th M Plan 2220251 Block 1 Lot 6 for Bill Ferris and Josh Taves as per the conditions presented. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote.
And Mr. Reeve, while council's voting on that, I'd just like to point out that Ms. Vandenberg is the hero of the month for the month of August. So when you see the big Hero of the Month parking sign out there, that'll be her parking there this month.
Is
So,
that, you got a new hairdo too, or is that?
No, it's the
Oh,
same
my.
old hairdo.
All right, I thought maybe being the hero got a new hairdo too. All right, we'll let you go this month. Well, congratulations. That carried. Any business arising from the minutes? Number 8, no. 9.2, environment. Matt, welcome.
Morning, Council.
Morning.
This morning, the Environmental Protective Services quarterly report from April to June 2022. So I will have a couple managers come up and the Director of Public Safety. So first it will be the Manager of Agricultural Services to present the quarterly report.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, we're going to start with this year. We entered into a one-year agreement with Agriculture, Forestry, and Rural Economic Development on their wild boar program, and we will provide $75 for each pair of eligible ears. 0 submissions have been so far this year. In 2018, we implemented the beaver reduction program. At the end of June, we received approximately 200 beaver tails, and internally, we removed 98 beavers from roadside culvert and problem areas. We have completed our first round of rat inspections on Range 1 as required by our annual rat control grant agreement. 509 inspections have been completed at the end of June. We are sold out of our 2% liquid strychnine, and as retail sales have ended on March 4th, 2022. The last date for the usage of this product will be March 4th of 2023. Alternative products available for farmers are Rocon and Rosol. We have hired 3 weed inspectors this year to work with landowners to slow the spread of noxious weeds and to protect our agricultural lands. Of the 675 sites that we have inspected so far, 207 of these sites have contained noxious weeds. Roadside mowing was delayed with the inclement weather, and 300 kilometers have been completed at the end of June. All hamlets have had their initial mow, and we have completed 30 of the 90 subdivisions. The airport and MD yard have also been completed. 92 kilometers of roadside have been sprayed thus far with the roadside spray truck. Approximately 1,300 kilometers will be completed this year. We have sprayed 4 fence lines that were contaminated with noxious weeds. The fence line spray program is new with us this year. The MD will pay an incentive to landowners who are building or repairing a fence line of $500 to $3,500 per half mile for the removal of trees and debris that are in the roadside ditch adjacent to the property line. We have had 2 miles sign up for the program and have paid out 1 mile to date. The MD provides a variety of rental farm equipment to ensure farming and ranching operations within the municipality remain sustainable and profitable. We maintain approximately 40 pieces and have rented out 106 units to date. 10,000 tree seedlings are sold and planted annually in the MD, and this popular program was sold out again this year. The MD VSI program, Veterinary Health Services Program, was designed to help ease the financial burden that MD farmers and ranchers often face when hit with unexpected herd health issues. 271 claims were submitted for the second quarter for a total of just over $58,000. This year we hosted a tree pests and white cockle seminar in Fort Kent in June. We had great attendance and we had lots of interaction by all attendees. We offer 2 $500 bursaries available through the AAAF annually to encourage our youth in agriculture, and the deadline for the submission will be the end of July. The Seed Plant AGM was held on June 24th. 2 new board members were elected, Lenore Pickray and Forrest Pursley. Robert Chaloux has retired from the board after many years of service. Are there any questions?
Yes, Deputy Reeve Fadeo.
Good morning, Ms. Bowen.
Morning.
In regards to the wild boar thing, is that something that we're kind of seeing our neighboring municipalities have an issue with, and we're kind of looking at just keeping, I guess, ahead of the bacon?
Through the Reeve. Yes, St. Paul has a wild boar farm, and there has been sightings as well as South Point. And we had 1 call come in this year. It was a domestic black pig, though.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Yeah, Mr. Reeve.
Councillor Sawyer.
Yeah, thanks for that interesting report. I got a question about the noxious weed. So you had about 206 out of 675 areas identified. Do they get cleanup orders or anything? And if, like, specifically industrial sites, do they actually get issued a cleanup order or no?
Through the Reeve to Councillor Swigert. With the industrial sites, we do give weed notices. We try to assist them with the cleanup and give them advice on how to do it. We have given notices and they've always complied with them.
Mowing of the ditches, the biggest complaint I ever had. Do we have the same schedule every year, or do we switch it up every other year?
As per our policy, it's changed every other year.
It does change?
Yeah, so we mow to the fence line every second year.
Okay, that's not the question I had, is where do you start and where do you finish? That's the question I have. Because people ask me all the time, how come it's always there and every year? Does the rotation switch from wards, or is it always do the same?
Over the past couple of years, we've done the same program, and we do it with the population densities. So we do the more populated areas, and we start in Bonnyville, and we do the loop like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's just, you get the comment, we're always,
Last.
it's, we're just mowing ditches in certain areas now. So every year they get the same thing, so they just concern.
We can definitely have some discussions on that.
Thank you. Any other discussions? Okay, just looking for a motion then, gentlemen. Yeah, Councillor Swiger? Okay.
No, I'll make that motion to accept that report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Swiger, for making a motion on behalf of council. The council accepts the environment sorry.
Mr. Reeve, sorry to interrupt, but they're actually not quite done yet. Waste Services still has.
Well, that was a good one too, though, Ms. Reed. That was a good, I like that.
All right.
That was a good report.
My apologies.
Yeah, go twice if you want.
Twice today I screwed up in a row here. All right. Go ahead, Brad. Sorry, I thought we had to make a motion for each one. What do we do without Steph? We got to give her a little shooting.
Good morning again, Council. I'm here to present the second quarter report for the Waste Services Department. First off, here's a list of landfill visitors over the second quarter there. Pretty typical numbers. We haven't seen really increase or decrease to note for any of the sites. As for waste collection, with the campgrounds coming online in May, we are collecting waste from 46 sites across the MD, which house 159 waste bins. We have trucks on the road collecting waste and recycling Sunday through Friday, including statutory holidays. With the campgrounds open for business and creating more waste, we needed to add a dedicated run to 7 of the campground sites. These sites are Vezo Beach, Pelican Point, Wolf Lake, Manitokan, Cold Lake, Bear Trap, and Muriel Lake. Campground collection for these 7 sites occurs on Mondays or Wednesdays as the operation schedule permits. Chicken Hill and Mini Lake remain on the regular Monday run, while Crane Lake, Ethel Lake, and French Bay are on the Tuesday run. With the Beaver River Regional Waste Management Commission, we saw a new 3-year contract awarded to the current hauler, which is a local company called Core Projects. Also there with the new compactor trailer that we had ordered last fall is still undergoing modifications to meet the needs, and that's the compactor trailer that will service the MD Trans stores at our sites. In the second quarter, we received our new dump trailer, which was purchased locally from Pioneer Off-Road. The dump trailer is a key piece of equipment for our department, as it puts on over 1,000 kilometers per week with our crew cleaning up bin sites and landfills and all the items that are dropped off there. The metal recycling contract was awarded in the second quarter to K&K Prairie Recycling Services. This is the company who has serviced the MD for the past 7 years, and they've been doing an excellent job. The roadside cleanup program took place, and this year we had 24 groups participate. The groups cleaned 356 kilometers of roadway, and the program paid out $26,678 to local nonprofit groups. Also in the second quarter, administration was working with the City of Cold Lake to develop a charge account so MD residents can drop off their bagged household waste and recyclables at the City of Cold Lake landfill. In April, the Riverhurst bin site was removed from behind the hall, with residents directed to use the Hilda Lake landfill. With the removal of the bin site, the Riverhurst Hall Board requested a bin be placed for hall events. Also in June, residents of the Meadowview bin site, just south of the MD shop, were surveyed about their waste disposal options. The current bin site idea was the desired option, so after gathering that information, we widened the road surface where the current bins were placed to make room for landowner access and the bins. And then lastly, in June, we hosted a transfer station course for 18 waste services staff from around the region, and 6 of which were MD staff.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Yes,
Yeah,
Councillor
Mr.
Sawyer.
Just a comment, it's interesting to see the landfill visitations in Ardmore at 3,400, quite a bit more than most of them. And it's just, I guess, a general comment that Ardmore is probably one of the smaller sites, and that pit's going to be full soon, and it's a new one, so.
Yeah, through the Reeve, we've seen typical traffic, and we're doing all that we can to mitigate the use of that pit, including the mattress recycling program, which has been huge over the years, and I'll report back after Q4 on our numbers with that.
Okay, thank you, sir. I got her now, Steph. Yeah, we'll probably keep it, for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Reeve, members of council.
Morning.
Morning. Good morning. So we have the public safety quarterly report before you. Next slide, please. So preventing crime, just a bit of an overlay of where our patrols have focused most of their time on. Bin sites, this is just for the, obviously the second quarter, 269 patrols to the bin sites, occupying 35% of our resources or time spent patrolling. Landfills were 100 patrols for 13%. Greater shops, 76 patrols for 10%. Fire halls, we've included in our patrol schedule as well. Campgrounds, 169 for 22% of our patrols. Town halls, 121, including 15%. Kinnasoo and Kapala are also represented there as well. So that's sort of an overview of what we have been doing as far as MD infrastructure, property, and patrols to protect those items. Furthermore, we've also continued with our patrols for industry. We partner with some industry partners in the area. Second quarter of 2022, we delivered 295 hours of patrol services to our industry partners. This is on a fee-for-service basis, and we work with them, well, we're in contact with them every other day or sometimes daily when we interact with a vehicle that is a contractor or is services or is an employee of one of these businesses. We often do a report for them and advise them, you know, what we've uncovered. And sometimes we do positive reporting as well when it comes to some of the industry partners. So we don't just tell them when there's bad news, we often report good news as well. Commercial vehicles form a large portion of our patrols as well. I've got all the photos that I post here are actually local photos that our officers have inspected vehicles. I'm sorry that one on the top right doesn't seem to come through, but that's a brake bladder, and it's completely destroyed. It's one of the vehicles that we took out of service, unfortunately.
What kind of bladder?
Well, it's like an airbag.
It's your airbag, yeah.
Yeah, right, yes.
I thought
yeah.
you said something to do with a brake. Yeah.
Right, it's a suspension.
That's your suspension airbag, yeah.
I don't pretend, Mr. Reeve, to be as qualified as some of our inspectors. They're very.
I know,
very
I changed those before, so it's blown up.
We've got some bald tires. Tires are a constant problem, brake misadjustments, things of that nature. Quite often we see things of that nature, fairly common. 71 commercial vehicles were inspected, resulting in 20 trucks being pulled from service in the second quarter. And once again, common things we find. This is a photo that one of our officers took from an unbeaded inner tire. So yeah, just a tire that was completely off the bead. Leaking air lines, loose chains or loads. So those things are all very common. And we'll go to the next slide, please. All right, so the summary of tickets. Provincial tickets, 204 for the quarter, provincial warnings, 302, and bylaw tickets were 17. Fair bit of that is speeding and occupant restraint, things like that, distracted driving, fairly typical Traffic Safety Act type violations. If there's any questions, please just ask them at the time, and I'd be happy to answer them. Go ahead to the next page, please. All right, so I know that there's some questions about our tracking system and how it serves our patrol monitoring. Unfortunately, Ward 1, simply because of its location, is overly represented. We've worked with Titan, who's our provider for GPS services, to try and rectify this issue. Unfortunately, it's a bigger problem than we think. They're going to have to look at installing some hardware into these vehicles and that. And for that reason, what we've done is simply, we've tried to factor in, I've had a conversation with our officers to see what would be a reasonable percentage that we could peel off of Ward 1 just simply to account for that. The fact that we're in there more often than not, that's where our building is, and that's where we're typically leaving from to go to another location or another ward. We've halved off 30% as a pretty good number, we feel, and so these are amended hours, kilometers, and visits to each ward, minus the 30% for Ward 1. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer any. You might take a few minutes to look at that. But.
Yes, Deputy Reeve.
Again, yeah, I addressed this before, again, to local patrolled, Ward 6. It is the second largest ward by a few people in regards to, for population-wise, and we still keep saying the lowest visits there, and I'm just kind of wondering if that's all going to get.
What we're looking at, excuse me, through the Reeve to Councillor or to Deputy Reeve Fadea, what we're looking at is starting a shift there, because it is problematic for us as we work our way to some of the more distant wards like Ward 6. It's easy to get peeled off for a call or something that comes in. I know over the, particularly right now, not necessarily during the second quarter, we're understaffed a bit due to holidays and that kind of thing. So we've been trying to send people out to Ward 6 to just start your shift there. And we may even play with overnighting people, just we do have a few officers that live in Cold Lake, and we could just have them go directly from there to, rather than coming to the office, to starting their shift in Ward 6. So we're looking at doing that
Great idea.
as well, once we get a little bit more staff
Okay.
and we're getting through the summer.
Sounds good.
We do have people with overnight vehicles that are on call in Cold Lake. So that's one of the things that we're looking at, is just starting them off in Cold Lake. Right from there, they can start their day in Ward 6. And hopefully that'll bring up the times and make that a little bit more normalized.
Okay, thank you.
Some of our common files, livestock complaints, fairly typical. Unsightly properties, a little bit down this year. We haven't had as many complaints of unsightly properties, but then on the flip side of that, we've had lots of complaints for garbage and loose loads in the second quarter. So sometimes these stats, you can't really make sense of them, but and we have been spending a lot more time on the bin sites and that kind of thing, trying to deal with some of the dumping that's involved. So I guess when you spend more time on something, maybe you unfortunately dig up a little bit more work for yourself, but that might be what's reflected in the increase there. Another one that was interesting, the UTV type complaints have come down quite a bit. Off-highway vehicle complaints, if you look at the years previously in the second quarter, we've only had 2 so far. Well, we only had 2 in this year. Could be due to COVID. I know last year we had some issues with people because of the COVID restrictions. There was a lot of off-highway vehicle activity very early in the year, as people were kind of doing things on their own as families and maybe not necessarily with their neighbors. So it could be that because of that, they were getting on their off-highway vehicles and doing more activities as a family in their groups. But any other questions on that data?
Yeah, Deputy Reeve.
Yeah,
Fidel?
just a question in regards to that. I know what the answer is going to be, but just for the public out there, in case they don't know. So when somebody is squatting on private land and making excessive noise and all the other stuff, it is up to the owner of the land to make the complaint to us in order for us to control that? Because there's nothing we can do with them being on private land, correct?
Correct. On private land, the rules are entirely different for insurance and for helmeting and things of that nature, licensing. It's all different on private land. The regulations really don't exist on private land. So for that reason, it's difficult for us to deal with complaints that are arising when someone's got a quarter section or several acres where they're doing maybe some off-highway patrols or whatnot, or excuse me, off-highway recreation. It's hard for us to deal with that. We typically end up having to deal with that by way of a noise complaint if it's maybe being too loud, but we don't have a lot of teeth when it comes to private property.
Right, yeah, thank you. It's a property kind of just east of the Walmart area, all the way up to Range Road 420A and up to 624, where, it's owned by an investment company out of Calgary, and yeah, you'll see a lot of burned vehicles and things like that there and all that. So, but I keep telling people and it's easy access because of the utility way with the Cold Lake Utilities Commission that has their line there, and it's easy access for them, but that's how that goes. So.
Right, and if it is private property, we'd need to get permission from the owner to do anything for them there, even like investigate.
Yeah, and there's no interest on their part, so I've reached
That's
out
right.
and so.
It's a tough one.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any further questions on this data?
Well, I got a question back to the commercial truck in here. You said you conduct 71 commercial vehicle inspections, and out of those 71, can you break down what's oil tanker, gravel haulers, construction trucks, or would you have a breakdown of that?
I don't for this particular slide, for this presentation, but if I could introduce that to the next quarter, potentially, if I can, if that's what you'd like, I can make a note and introduce that. I would anecdotally tell you that by far it's going to be industry related. There's very little in the way of anything other commercial traffic up there that's not, there is some farming and that kind of thing, but the majority is industry related.
Yeah, I was just curious, like from tankers versus gravel haulers or heavy equipment trucks, stuff like what the breakdown is and all that.
Yeah, we can look for that, Councillor Slipchuk. Thank you. I can bring that data to the next meeting.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you.
I do have a few more
Oh.
slides, but
All right.
we're almost through it here. All right, so petty trespass.
I'll tell you what, they're gonna, I'm not batting very good averages today.
Petty trespass, usually, again, this is very tied in very closely with off-highway vehicle issues. And we've had little in the way of complaints, only 4 trespassing incidents reported. That marries our data from the off-highway vehicles as well. So it just seems to be very related or linked, if you would. Community standards, as I said, we responded to 10 unsightly property complaints. Is there any questions on how we handle those, or is that fairly straightforward for council? Okay, it's been around, it's a system that's been in place for a long time.
Yeah.
So they take a little bit of time to investigate, and we end up having to work with the homeowner, in some cases going a different route, a legal route, to have the property remedied and then costing it back. Focused on dog safety as well. Dog complaints, the data doesn't seem to support it very much. What we're finding is a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of mother dogs with litters. We're getting a lot of that this year, and we're getting a lot of them just kind of abandoned on the side of the road in a box, or we're getting people who just, come across it somewhere. And unfortunately, the SPCA is really getting hit quite badly this year with dogs and cats being surrendered. So sometimes we've had some issues trying to find homes for these dogs. And we do have a relationship now with the Humane Society in Cold Lake, so we're working with them to expand into that area as well. And they've got a lot more space than the SPCA does here locally. So, but yes, if council has been hearing anecdotally that there is a bit of an issue with dogs throughout the province, in fact, I would echo that it is an issue, that we're seeing an increase. And finally, the last slide I have before I just open it to questions, if there's any, is this a school resource officer program. 440 presentations delivered in the second quarter, over 9,000 students during the second quarter again, and in summary, they service 23 area schools and 3 school subdivisions. We do have a presentation from them later on this morning, so I won't go too far into the SRO program, but I'll answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Steph? Okay, thank you, everybody.
Mr. Reeve?
Yes.
Yeah, it was a question that was brought up to me by a resident who, again, brought up the rural crime issue and schedules of patrols. And again, it's the same old deal, right? Everybody knows that you're only out there till about 10 at night, and that's when the criminals put on their balaclavas and take off. So, I'm just bringing that comment forward, and maybe we have another discussion about sort of hours and stuff. And you don't want to publicly say we're going to be out there at this location from this time to this time, because then the bad guys hear us and they're not going to do anything anyway. But anyway, I think it sort of requires maybe a bit more discussion again about schedules and hours, shifts. And I know we're tight, but.
Through the Reeve to Councillor Swigert, thank you for the information. We do have a level of service discussion coming up with council concerning public safety, and that can be part of that discussion. We can look at that.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Mr. Reeve, can I just say they all did a great job? Is that it now? Because I made that motion like an hour ago, and it still stands, I think.
I think we'll keep it.
Yeah, just a quick comment to Councilor Swigert. Yeah, people think that if there's a crime happening, they always seem to want our bylaw guys to deal with it. But it's, I told a resident just the other day, is if you see a crime, you dial 911, you call the RCMP. There's nothing we can do anyway, so they were kind of surprised at that. But yeah, it's a crime, it's 911, so.
Mr. Reeve?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Reeve, members of council. I would add that the scheduling issue for peace officers is a little bit more complicated than just making sure that they're out at 2 o'clock in the morning. We have a significant responsibility to our staff. They are not police officers and they're not armed. So to have a peace officer by themselves at 2 o'clock in the morning, in some personal jeopardy, I would add, if they do stumble across something, we're not police. And I think that's one of the messages we have to reiterate to our residents and to the public is that we are essentially a reporting mechanism. Certainly, the peace officers could patrol in the middle of the night, but if something's happening, they are not there to interfere, stop, or get in the way of a crime that's taking place. That's not their role, that's not what their training is, and that certainly would be unsafe for that individual. So for us to have the discussion about scheduling, it's a much bigger conversation as to what our role would be, and are we going to put on multiple peace officers in single vehicles so they go out together in the middle of the night? This is going to become a budget discussion as well as it is a level of service discussion.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you. Well, unless Stephanie tells me no. Thank you, Councillor Sawyer, for making a motion on behalf of council that council accepts the environmental and protective services quarterly report for April, May, and June 2022 as information. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Carried. On to 922.
Thank you, Mr. Reeve. On February 3rd, 2008, excuse me, I'll just wait for it to come up. On February 3rd, 2008, Council for the MD of Bonnyville created our award-winning Student Resource Officer program, and it was rolled out for its first year in 2009. Over the last 14 years, it has evolved into an award-winning program that is the envy of many communities and is often copied throughout the province. Today, 23 schools are served by our SRO officers, including schools in Cold Lake, Glendon, Bonnyville, Ardmore, and Iron River. The program has had to adapt over time as priorities for parents, teachers, and students have changed. In 2008, there was less for families to worry about and less for our officers to manage as they developed their learning plans for students. Topics like internet safety, sexual exploitation, sexual trafficking, opioid use, legal use of cannabis, depression resulting from COVID, graduated licensing, and other programs or other, situations are all new developments for students and families to navigate. Since this is a fairly new council, it's been decided to provide council with an overview of the SRO program and allow for questions and comments. And then concerning discussion of benefits, advantages, the SRO program will be part of a larger discussion on public safety priorities during a level of service discussion with council scheduled for the fall. This report by the SROs is for council's information only at this time. And we do have both of our SRO officers available, and they're going to be delivering a brief PowerPoint presentation for council. Any questions before we begin?
No, thank you.
Oh, and then, this here.
Morning, everyone.
Morning,
Reeve
ladies.
Kalinsky, I think I'll probably top your 3 blunders there. So go gently on me there. I'm not familiar with formalities, so I'll apologize in advance. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview. A couple of the council members are probably already familiar of the origins of the SRO program. So in 2007, the Alberta government completed the Keeping Communities Safe report, and one of the recommendations in that report, under number 14, was students should have access to a school resource officer. So in collaboration with the school divisions, Lakeland Catholic School Division, Northern Lights School Division, and the Francophone Division, the MD of Bonnyville, the SRO program was developed in 2010. I had the privilege of being one of the original founders of the SRO program under different management in that. And so I have seen the evolvement over the time, how it's changed in that. And so we're going to go through a lot of the programs that we offer now and why they've been implemented. We'll go through the statistics in the past year, just for the past year, how much of our time is allocated to those programs and standalone presentations. Can you guys all hear me? Because I don't talk very loud. Okay, I'm a little nervous. You'll see how many presentations we've done through the year, and you guys are a lot different than school faces. So.
You're doing good. Keep it going.
Okay, am I talking too fast as well?
Oh, no, you're
Okay,
good.
good. I know those above 60, as in the search and rescue team was
They're sure
identified.
bashing the
It's like,
60-year-olds
what's wrong
today, eh?
with 60? I know, right? So the way the program was developed was initially the school officers met with school staff and that, and we've identified, it was difficult in the beginning to gain the trust of the school divisions and the staff and that, but we actually worked together with them, identified their concerns, created programs that addressed and met curriculum requirements. So those initial core programs are still in place, and we're going to go over those core programs. They have evolved most definitely, and there's some there have been 2 more core programs introduced as well, and we'll give you the breakdown just into how much time is spent, how many presentations in those core programs as well, and that's to follow here. So the breakdown of the 23 area schools, I do believe there's 6 Catholic, 15 Northern Light schools. That includes the Pine Meadows Hutterite School, as well as the 2 outreach schools, and then there's the 2 Francophone schools that are on board here, École de Bolac and École Voyageur.
So our mission statement is to assist students in making informed choices through awareness, education, and positive role modeling.
So one of the programs that we've actually expanded upon is the Peace Patrol Leadership Program. It initially started as just students volunteer. It's specific to grade 4 students with outdoor supervision and that. So we've expanded upon to include public speaking. They're taught to how to public speak. They have the opportunity to develop presentations and present during assemblies in the morning and that once a week to their fellow students in the school there. So they work on their public speaking, communication skills. We do, I think it's a 1-day training with them. We go in and we teach them the basics of verbal judo, how to communicate and that. They're held accountable, their schedule's posted, they're explained, so it teaches them accountability, responsibility, and they also have a duty to fill out simple reports, good deed reports, as well as items, things they identify or observe in the playground that are reoccurring issues over the week or whatever. And what this program does is it installs their confidence and gets them prepared to transfer into the middle schools.
And then we have the Right Choices program. This was geared towards our grade 5 students. So we go in and do a set of 5 different programs. They have an assignment where they each have a poster you can see in the back. It's kind of hard to see, but they have a poster where they have to create each topic and display what they've learned. And then it gets put out onto a big poster, which we have had here at the main building displayed before. And then after we do this, they have a graduation and are awarded certificates that Mr. Reeve gets to sign his name over and over and over.
Yeah, I do
For
that.
this. This is just an introduction to, drug awareness, the bullying, the harassment, the peer pressure, and those types of things of what can happen in the school. The alcohol, caffeine, and tobacco. Vaping has also been incorporated into this one because that's a pretty big popular as well.
And just on that note, we're, to maintain the integrity of the program, we're constantly changing as times change too. Before we go back into schools, we need to confirm what's out there now in regards to internet safety, what apps are students on, and that kind of brings us into the child exploitation that's been identified as well that we're seeking training on. So we're constantly upgrading our programs to maintain the integrity. The next program, this is another core program here, Crime Scene Investigation, CSI. The students love it, teachers love it because they have the opportunity to apply theory through observation and inference, their observation and inference skills. They apply it to a mock crime scene we set up. They learn how to dust and lift fingerprints through a fingerprint lab and that. So it allows them to apply and remember their theory and apply it to hands-on crime scene. And it does meet the science curriculum of the grade 6 students.
And then we introduced the Power Within Me program and the Life Choices program about 3 years ago. We felt that in our system we had a gap where we didn't interact with grade 7 and 8 students. So we met with some of the counselors in the schools and discussed, what are your needs? What are the areas that we should focus on to stay engaged with the students and keep building these relationships? So basically in grade 7, it's all about dealing with emotions, their self-esteem. Self-respect is a big one, we've noticed. So we work on goal setting and what our values are and go from there. And then in grade 8, we talk about more body image. That social media really plays a big factor on the mental health of our students and what they're seeing out there. So we talk about introducing what a healthy relationship is. We all come from a diverse, everybody has a different home style, lifestyle. So it's important for them, if they've never seen what a healthy relationship is, that they understand and are aware of what it could be. So that's a really big one. And just incorporating a good, healthy lifestyle, choosing good choices, and bringing that into their lifestyle.
I just want to add about when we do all these presentations and these programs, it's not all about just introducing the information, it's developing the relationships with the students from kindergarten. You'll see our standalone presentations all the way through to grade 12. So they become familiar with us, comfortable with us. A lot of the discussions generated through some of these topics are things that don't typically get discussed at home. Nobody wants to really go in that direction, or parents aren't even aware of what's out there in the internet and online and that. So this allows us, and based on the questions that are being asked in the class by the students, it allows us to identify some concerns that we see with the students too, and how they've changed over time, and what we discuss it with the counselors, school staff, and that as well. So it's not just all about the delivery, it's also what we take from that.
So we just have a few more individual sessions. The ones that we presented are programs that we do at all of the schools, but the schools also have choices to pick out individual sessions. So from kindergarten to grade 4, one of our biggest ones here would be Halloween safety. We probably go blue in the face for how many presentations we do on Halloween safety. Yeah, in grade 3 to grade 7, mental health is really important. Dealing with the self-esteem and self-confidence is also big. That transition from elementary school to middle school is a big one, so helping them there. One of the biggest things from grade 8 to 12 is drug awareness, the vaping, the sexting, just bringing that into, some of them are exposed to it, some of them aren't, so just bringing the awareness to them and educating them. We also do girls' self-defense, which I think is really huge for the schools, especially for females who are timid and not sure what to do or don't know how to take off somebody who could potentially be in their space.
Yeah, and just on the one, just to explain how the times have changed in that. So for example, stranger danger, which we typically give to kindergarten to grade 2, the past school year, I was requested by staff to incorporate internet safety to kindergarten and grade 1s. Their online gaming, strangers are reaching out to them, so that's something that we discussed about incorporating that into our stranger danger as well as the online component. So that's how much times have changed and what the kids are exposed to now.
So then we have other community stakeholders that we also deal with, not only in the schools, but we deal with the Cold Lake Rural Mental Health Wellness Coalition Committee and the Wavelength Community Practice of Mental Health Project. So those two committees are basically suicide and mental health awareness. So those are platforms where if students are having suicidal thoughts or any type of feelings towards that, they can reach out. So we sit as stakeholders on these community as well to help have that communication and interaction with them. The Hive is the new youth hub, if you haven't heard of it, in our community. This is for students and up to 25, I believe, that they can go hang out, get support, ask questions or any help that they need. We also, one of the biggest things is our key role is to build relationships with students, and through all of the programs and the field trips and the school activities that we help with the students and the teachers, like one of the biggest things we do is recess interactions. We do support groups over lunch times where we go and they eat their lunch and we're there and they can openly ask questions or things that they might not want to do in a classroom setting, but just that presence and knowing that we're there for them no matter what happens.
So some of the other SRO program services that are offered is we do assist staff with any issues or concerns that they identify, and we, we develop some problem-solving initiatives. An example I'll give is the past year, one of the schools approached me on a concern with a lot of their students vaping. So it was through education, awareness, and the last result was enforcement. So there was presentations. You'll see given the statistics on the vaping presentations coming up. So that was educating all classes from grade 7 to 10 in the school, as well as information home to parents in the school newsletter. Students were informed that should they be caught vaping on school property, then it was a mandatory, the school division supported a mandatory addictions class in school there, as well as then the last resort was going to be the actual violation ticket, because really a violation ticket doesn't get you anywhere. Parents will pay at school, or students don't really respect that component, so they were requested to actually either participate in the community service hours and the mandatory addictions course within the school. So education, awareness, and then enforcement we went. We also judged special events. We used to judge, well, the 4-H programs, science fairs were called upon to assist in the judging of the science fairs. We attend school open house evenings. Because of COVID, those were quashed. Hopefully they'll reintroduce them this school year, where we attend the open houses. We set up a booth representing our program, and that parents come over, they've heard about it from their kids, and they come over with any questions that they do have. We provide, okay, move on. We're running out of time, sorry.
A few other things that we do for assistance is we do traffic control for Terry Fox runs out in our MD schools. We conduct school zone patrols, and we help with the bus safety patrols as well.
So this gives you a little, an idea of where we've spent our time, or how much time we spent on programs. A large percentage, 44% of our presentations were specific to the program. So those are the core programs, being the Right Choices, Peace Patrol, the 2 grade 7 and 8 programs, and the CSI grade 6 program. Individual presentations was 21%, that's the green area there. 8% was special events, 3% assisting staff with those identified concerns in that, and 6% was enforcement. 18% were those interactions, school recess, lunch hour interactions, and that. So this gives you a little bit more breakdown of the programs, the core programs there, you can read that. So the 3 main ones, the Peace Patrol, Right Choices, CSI, and then the 2 other programs are Power Within Me and Life Choices. Individual presentations, as Officer Rupp alluded to earlier, Halloween safety is top on the list. We do presentations to every single grade level in the elementary schools, standalone individual presentations, because if you get 50 kids in one sitting, it's really difficult at kindergarten level, and so we do individual, so we're pretty busy that full week right before Halloween. Bike safety, we do that, as well as bike rodeos. With COVID restrictions being lifted, we have been requests to do more bike rodeos, and with that we have included or invited the RCMP, but most of the time they're not available, so we have actually reached out to them on that to participate. As well as stranger danger, you're going to look through and you're going to see the other mental health breathing techniques in there. Home alone safety, we've been asked more often. Kids are being left home, at a younger age now. You'll see self-defense, the sexting is a big one, and that kind of incorporates a little bit of internet safety at a higher level, at high school level and middle school level, and the vaping there. So, you took over the numbers.
Yeah. Sorry. Perfect. So then we conduct a survey at the end of every school year, and this basically just is for the overall satisfaction or improvement areas of where us as SROs can improve. So we sent this out to 98 teachers and principals, and we had a response of 76 teachers and principals respond to us, which is a really good number of 78% response rate. And if you've ever done a survey, you know that you usually don't get very many responses. So you can see this is the Lakeland Catholic is a little bit less than the public school division because they have more, and then the French schools, there's only 2. So just basically overall, the satisfaction with the school offered, you can see green is yes, everybody. One person just didn't use, which was a new teacher. Then you can see here the individual sessions. Do we need to add more? Everybody here says they were satisfied and nothing was needed here. These are just different comments. I won't go into it. You can review it on your own if you like to read them. So basically, we had nowhere where it stated that they did not want to have us. They were happy with the service that we gave them, and if they wanted us to improve or provide more services, and they just said to keep basically doing what you're doing, continue to go on. There were a few suggestions of like more group girls, support for high school students, because once you hit grade 10, we don't have as much engagement with them because, you know, they're too cool for school. But this is kind of one of the things that they basically stated that they would like to have that. So overall, like I said, reading the comments, there's not too much that we haven't covered. Good. So, any questions?
Yes, Councillor Slipchuk.
Yeah, I just got, do you guys do anything with seniors, like in the senior homes? Because they're getting targeted so much, like so many of them now have iPhones and that they're getting targeted scams and stuff.
Right.
Is there anything that you do with them that maybe can bring awareness and help them, give them information?
We, through the Reeve to Councillor Slipchuk, we have not explored. They're actually fully tasked right now just with the schools.
Yeah.
So oftentimes when I get a request from an outside, you know, we recently got a request from an outside community wanting them to come in and do a presentation and maybe do a bit of a delivery for one of the schools, and we simply couldn't do it. We looked at our schedule, and furthermore, you know, these are our resources, so we can look at that at council's you know, discretion if there's a need. But I would suggest that right now the focus has remained with the schools, and they're fully tasked already with some of the challenges that they have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that, and thank you guys for all you do and with the kids and that.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, just a comment. It's, yeah, great program, and I've heard from my grandkids that they really enjoyed, you know, parts of that. CSI was one of the ones that they really enjoyed, and anyways, appreciate it. Thanks.
And just to add one final thing that I was reminded of, so in terms of where we're taking, where we've come as a program, so there's other communities that are very interested in what we're doing. They remain interested. We've assisted to other communities just through dialogue and through sharing of information and kind of giving them some discussion points that they can take to their stakeholders and that kind of thing. But we do have, there's a couple of other communities in the province right now that have actually implemented programs, and both of them have checked in with the MD of Bonnyville prior to doing that, just to make sure that they're on the right track. So it is getting a lot of recognition throughout the province.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
Looking for a motion? Okay, Councillor Kraviak.
I'll make the motion to approve this as information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kraviak. On behalf of council, I make a motion that council accepts Student Resource Officers Program overview as information. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Carried, thank you. 7.9.3.
Thank you, Mr. Reeve. On February 10th, 2021, Council defeated a motion that would have seen the Bonnyville Regional Fire Authority adopt a 15-year replacement cycle for their fire apparatus equipment. However, further clarification was never provided indicating what Council wanted the replacement schedule to be moving forward. BRFA supports a 15-year schedule for pumpers, while tankers would be extended to 20 years. Administration has supported a 20-year schedule for all fire apparatus equipment, but is presently conducting a review of information obtained from numerous other communities. Finance is also supporting this review, and more time is needed to compile and process all of the information. Furthermore, while looking through old agreements and documents pertaining to the BRFA, it has come to the attention of administration that many of our agreements may be out of date and in need of review with the BRFA. Administration is therefore requesting that Council give direction to conduct a review of all data collected concerning fire apparatus replacement, as well as a review of all agreements between MD and BRFA, between DMD and the BRFA on record, with a focus on updating and consolidating them into one succinct agreement. Recommendations can be brought to the Committee of the Whole meeting scheduled for February 16th, 2023 for discussion. Administration reviews all MD policies as scheduled, typically every 5 years, and makes amendments as required. As MD policies change, existing agreements may fall out of sync with current policies and may expose the MD and the BRFA to unnecessary risk. Additionally, while it's important to update the BRFA fire apparatus schedule, on April 13th, 2022, Council approved the request by the Bonnyville Regional Fire Authority to issue a tender for the replacement of 5 fire apparatus over the next 3 years. This being the case, a decision is not imminently needed. Therefore, administration is requesting that more time be given before returning to council to allow for a more complete and accurate evaluation and recommendations. There are several appendixes included with this request for decision, including a letter from the BRFA board, motion, the BEAR report, fire underwriters survey report governing the replacement of fire apparatus, research the data of other municipalities' practices, and a council motion from February 10th of 2021. You can see the linkage to our strategic plan, strong financial health, valuing the safety of the public and those that serve the municipality, and enhanced safety in the community is also a strategic priority. Concerning the replacement schedule, there's no legislation that determines what a fire apprentice life cycle should be. Rather, these standards are determined by the Underwriter Laboratories of Canada and the National Fire Protection Association. The Fire Underwriter Survey has adopted the recommendations set out by both agencies as appropriate and outlines what testing should be done for fire apparatus when determining if they are suitable for frontline use. Recommended action is that Council defer the decision on fire apparatus replacement cycle as requested by the Bonnyville Regional Fire Authority Board, and furthermore directs administration to complete a review of all agreements between the MD of Bonnyville and the BRFA on record, with a focus on updating and consolidating everything into one succinct agreement and bring it back to the Committee of the Whole at February 16th, 2023 meeting for discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
thanks for that. A lot of stale agreements that we have, and I mean, the BRFA has the fire trucks that we approved here not too long ago, so I don't think it's imminent that we do it right away. And I think February 16th, 2023 is a good time date, gives you guys a lot of chance to get that going. Some of my concerns that I've had in the past, which is, is with the MOUs with neighboring municipalities, with the use of our equipment on there, and I would love to see that captured in the agreements. And some of these things are haven't been looked at since the late 90s, so it'd be great to do an overview on everything. And I think if council looks at it, it's be a good discussion on February 16th.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reeve. As far as the agreements are concerned, they can be done later, but I made the motion on May 26th with the BRFA to try to get everybody on the same page, and that's why I made a motion for pumpers on the 15-year cycle. It's a more important piece of equipment, and tankers to go up to 20 years, so they can go up to 16, 17, 18, whatever, depending upon the tanker, how it's working, if we need a lot of repairs or not. So I think at this time, we waited for a long time to pass this. I'd like to make a motion for number 2 and see where it goes. That council approves the recommendation by the BRFA board to replace pumpers on a 15-year cycle and tankers up to a 20-year cycle. And then if agreements have to be reviewed, they can be done later. But I'd like to have this portion passed today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kraviak, for making that motion. Yeah, we'll have a discussion on it, right? Which motion did you want? You got it up there? Number 2. Okay. Okay, thank you, Councillor Kraviak, for making a motion on behalf of council. The council approves the recommendation by the Bonnyville Regional Fire Authority of BRFA board to replace pumpers on a 15-year cycle and tankers up to a 20-year cycle. Any discussion on this motion? Yeah, Deputy Reeve. Today.
Yeah, again, we made the motion some time ago to do the purchases, and these trucks are coming, and there's some even that are that are going to be, aren't even going to be the 15-year cycle. So I think, February 16th will be a good thing. We made, during a committee of whole meeting, we rammed stuff through on the 911 without, it wasn't, we weren't transparent on that. And so, why not wait till the 16th to look at everything, right? So, I mean, again, subsidizing certain parts of the MD on a 15-year cycle versus not is something I have an issue with, and I think February 16th is not that far away.
Councillor Scarson?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that, you have everything you need right now to proceed with, we can do business as usual, and come February, we can make a better informed decision. So I agree with Councillor Fadeo.
Councillor Swire?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mismatch of options here, because option 2, I'm totally in favor of that. We beat the tanker one and the pumper one to death. We studied it. We paid a lot of money for reports, and that I think we've already gone past that one. The 15-year cycle is what everybody else is using, and BRFA has agreed to that one at their meeting. So, and like Councillor Kurdiak said, he made that motion at their meeting, and that was what they wanted. So I would just say go with option 2, and you got all the time you want to study everything else. But it's pretty straightforward. Let's at least get the pumper thing on the schedule that they're using and they want to use. Anyway, my comments.
Yeah, Deputy Reeve Fadeo.
15-year cycle is not what everybody uses. There was a report that was attached to this file right now that shows you that it's not what everybody uses. It's a rural versus urban, and urban it does, but it's not what everybody uses. And I think with the costs coming in, I think we can just wait till that's fine, but it's not what everybody uses.
Yes, Councillor Crick?
Yeah, I just want to say I think it's important to note that on the BRFA board, right after being elected to council, even according to the MGA, sitting on one board, you were acting in the best decision of that board. So on the BRFA, which I sit on that board, I support decisions that are in the best interest of the BRFA. When it comes to the council table, we need to make the decisions that are best interest of the MD of Bonnyville as a whole. And I guess I don't see the need to rush this 15, 20-year cycle through on option 2. I think we can wait for option 1 and wait till February and get all the information and make an accurate decision then. So.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Slipchick?
Yeah, if we go with option 1, we're not going to see any hindrance to our current operations right now. It's not going to hinder our operation. Wait until February 23rd. And it gives us a chance to reach out more and discuss a little more about maybe other possibilities we can look at. Like there might be another way to do things here. And I'm going to go, I'll say on the record, I'm on for option 1.
Any other discussion on this?
Yeah, thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Reeve. It's not going to hinder our discussion either if we go with option 2 now also.
Yeah, Mr. Reeve,
Councillor Swiger?
a little frustrating here, because we've spent months and probably a year or more now discussing these pumper cycles, and we've had all the studies done. We paid for reports, and it cost us a lot of money because we delayed the purchase of these. So I don't think we want to keep delaying this. You can wait as long as you want, but it doesn't matter how long you wait. In my opinion, 15-year cycle for pumpers is what you want. 20 for tankers. It's not going to change in a year or two. I'm not going to sway my opinion on that one.
Okay, any more discussion? Yeah, Councillor Crick?
Just want to ask, we're not in a panic though, because we've already ordered 5 trucks now. There's no panic on this. If we come back in February, we see everything that's presented to us, and we all agree 15 years for pumpers, 20 for tankers, then we'll go with that then, and it's right, but there's no need to rush this through, I don't think. I guess I would also say that, I think everyone here agrees that the BRFA is a very important part of our community, and if there are people from the BRFA are watching my comments right now, they may not be too impressed, but I fully support the BRFA, but I also fully support making fully informed decisions, and that's why I'm willing to wait till February on this one.
Any other discussion? Yeah, there's good discussion from both ways. All right, I'm going to call for the vote then, if there's no more discussion. What's that? What's that?
I hit the wrong button. Can I pull that vote back? Okay, thank you.
Next time we have to take a hand, Fidel.
I know, right? Sorry.
Oh. Okay. Anybody else want to change their vote? Oh, that's me again here. Oh, they're waiting for me. Okay, this motion is defeated. Looking for another motion.
I'll make the recommended motion as option number 1, please.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Reeve Fidea, for making a motion on behalf of council that council defers the decision of fire apparatus replacement cycle as requested by Bonnyville Regional Fire Authority, BRFA, and furthermore directs administration to complete a review of all agreements between the MD of Bonnyville and the BFRA on record with a focus on updating and consolidating everything into one, that word's not good for me, sequestration agreement, and bring back to the committee of the whole at February 16, 2023 meeting for discussion. Any discussion on this motion?
Yeah,
Councillor
Mr.
Craig.
Is there supposed to be a 6-month wait before you make another motion on the same thing?
Mr. Reeve, if I
Yes.
may, this would not be a motion, this would be at a committee meeting, so it would not be council addressing us, it would be the committee of the whole.
Yeah, but you're still making a motion on council.
Mr. Reeve, members of council, if I understand Councillor Kreviak's question, the original motion was defeated. So there is no, it's not council undoing another done motion inside a 6-month period. It's making a motion to replace a defeated motion. So there is no 6-month window, if I understand Councillor Kreviak's question. Otherwise, council could never pass another motion on defeated motions. You'd have to wait 6 months. There is no motion on the floor currently because the previous motion was defeated.
Does that answer your question?
Mr. Reeve, to the CEO, what's the 6-month wait for?
The 6-month wait is for carried motions. For example, had council carried the original motion, and then 2 weeks from now, council decided they wanted to revisit the issue again, that's when the 6 months would come in. You can't make another motion inside the 6-month window to change a current and carried motion.
Unless you suspend the procedural bylaw, right?
Unless you suspend the rules, correct.
Okay.
Any other discussion on this motion? Okay, I'll call for the vote. It's carried. Thank you. All right, we're gonna break now for lunch. Just put your, thank you. Al.
Did you want me to read? Yeah.
I was waving it and redo it all, eh? What do you guys think? Yeah. Okay.
We're good.
Sorry. Keep going.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this asset management training opportunity would provide valuable knowledge to MD of Bonnyville staff working on our asset management and our multi-year budget planning programs. Administration is recommending that the MD apply for this program, specifically 3 of the streams that are available. One is called an introduction cohort, the second is an intermediate cohort, and the third is small group learning communities. Details of all those 3 components are provided in Appendix A and B. Just to refer to, just as a quick summary of what exactly that means, I'll just refer to the RMA bulletin in Appendix A. So the introductory cohort, this cohort seeks municipalities with, who are just starting off in their asset management journey, and it helps them through a consultant to facilitate the creation of asset management policies and plans. So it's more on the foundational policy side of creating and starting your asset management program. The intermediate cohort is, again, municipalities apply to participate in these facilitated sessions with a consultant, and that one focuses more on the technical side of asset management, so creating your registry database and your inventory of all of our infrastructure that exists in the municipality. The third one, which we are proposing we apply to, is the group learning communities. And what those are is it's a set of attending 2 workshops over the course of a year and a half to, it's more of a mentorship type program where you share and you learn from other municipalities what their experiences are and what they found to work. There is a 4th component as well that is focused more towards councils. That is the elected officials workshop. At the time of preparation of this RFD, the dates for those workshops were scheduled for September. However, we were just notified yesterday that the dates for these have been postponed. They are probably going to happen instead in the spring of next year, just due to low uptake at this time over the summer months. So what administration is hoping for today is that council makes a motion that council directs administration to apply to participate in the RMA, IMA, AUMA Municipal Asset Management Program training opportunities, and furthermore commit staff to participate in the program should the application be approved to be funded from the 2022 operating budget. And just to clarify as well, the reason this has been brought forward to council instead of just being a part of our normal operations is because in order to apply to the grant, they require a council motion, just showing council's approval and support.
Okay, thank you. Just looking for a motion. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Scarson. Okay, thank you, Councillor Scarson, for making a motion that council directs administration to apply to participate in the RMA, IAMA, AUMA Municipal Assessment Management Program training opportunities, and furthermore commit staff to participate in the program should the application be approved to be funded from the 2022 operating budget. Any discussion on this motion? Yes, Councillor Kraviak.
Thank you. It's no longer AUMA, it's AM.
Through the Reeve, I actually caught that as well. However, in the motion wording that was provided to us from the conglomerate, they actually put AUMA.
Yeah, there's no AUMA.
No, it's
It's a done deal.
their new acronym is Alberta
Yeah,
Munis.
they're AM and we're PM, so.
Okay, thank you. Mike? And, okay, go ahead.
I'd just like to also thank Mike for bringing that up.
What did he say?
He said he's very thankful that you brought that up.
Tell him that he's welcome.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. This got loud, this mic all of a sudden.
Could be a tie vote.
Okay, carried.
There is a second motion that is recommended. However, when we made the recommendation for a motion that council approves registering to attend the upcoming municipal asset management elected official training, it was with the thought that it was coming up this month. So if council would like to make the motion to allow for it, we could do that now, or we can bring it back should you wish when the training comes up.
Do you have the names that right now, or?
No.
Or just leave it blank?
That was up to council.
Maybe
Oh.
Councilor Fadell would like to.
I think so.
I think he would, wouldn't
You know, I guess we could give some thought, and then whoever wants to, we can bring the motion back next council meeting.
Yeah, Mr. Eve, there's no rush to make that motion.
Okay. Okay, that's what I got to deal with today, folks. Thank you.
You bet.
On to 9.3.2.
So on May 12, 2022, administration received an email from the Cold Lake Regional Chamber of Commerce requesting funding in the amount of $10,000 to sponsor their upcoming 2022 Feast at the Beach event. Administration advised the chamber that they could apply to our Community Action Grant program for an event sponsorship up to $5,000. Any amount requested over and above this value would need to be submitted to council for consideration as it falls outside of the current policy. Following the review of the Community Action Grant application submission, administration did approve the $5,000 event sponsorship request for the event. At the July 13th, 2022 regular meeting council, Ryan Lefebvre, president of the Cold Lake Regional Chamber, presented their request to council as a delegation for the additional $5,000 for a total of a $10,000 event sponsorship request. This amount would match the sponsorship made by the City of Cold Lake. Council requested administration to bring back this additional funding request to a future meeting of council as per Resolution 22.372. Historically, the MD did sponsor the inaugural Feast at the Beach event, which happened in 2019, in the amount of $10,000. Due to the pandemic, the event was not held in 2020 or in 2021. Attached for council's review is the Feast at the Beach sponsorship package, which was presented during their delegation presentation. Currently, the approved request of $5,000 was funded through the Community Action Grant 2022 operating budget. The current additional request for $5,000, if approved, would be from council's 2022 operating budget for grants to industry and non-government organizations. Administration's recommendation is in line with policy, is that council denies the request from the Cold Lake Regional Chamber of Commerce for an additional $5,000 over and above the already provided $5,000 event sponsorship funded through the MD Community Action Grant program for their 2022 Feast at the Beach event. Other council options are available.
Okay, thank you. Just looking for a motion from council.
Mr. Reeve, do have a question though on
Yes.
that. Esther, is there, this is September, what, 2nd or 4th or something? And do they have, I wonder, do we know if they've got all their funding in place already though?
We do not know that.
Okay, kind of nice to know, because if we've already given them 5,000 and they're kind of okay with it, it's a tough one, right?
Through the Reeve, I can elaborate that in the emails, when they submitted their initial request for $10,000, the reason that amount was requested was to be in line with the other municipality who's funding the event.
Thank you. Councillor Crick?
So let me just make sure I understand this right. We're just, you're asking for a motion to deny an additional 5,000 because we already gave them 5.
Correct.
Okay, I'll make that motion number 1.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Crick, for making a motion on behalf of council. That council denies the request from Cold Lake Regional Chamber of Commerce for additional 5,000 over and above the already provided 5,000 event sponsorship funded through the MD Community Action Grant Program for their 2022 Feast at the Beach event. Any discussion on this motion?
Yeah, Mr., just a
Councillor
comment.
Swaggart?
So we have in the past given 10,000 for this event?
Through the Reeve, yes, the first year it was held in 2019, we sponsored the event for $10,000. There has not been another event since that time.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. It's carried, thank you. 9.34, no. 3.3, sorry.
Again, at the July 13th regular meeting of council, we did have a delegation presentation on behalf of the Cold Lake Regional Chamber of Commerce made by Stacy Srilchuk, consultant with 143 Healthcare Consulting. She made a presentation to provide an update on the Chamber's completed Phase 1 Team-Based Primary Care Alternate Relationship Plan project for providing health care in the city of Cold Lake and a potential path forward. At this meeting, council requested administration to bring back their request for funding to undertake a Phase 2 of the above-mentioned project, which has a total cost estimated at $85,000 to a future meeting of council for consideration. To date, local community stakeholders, including healthcare providers, residents, and municipalities, have not been consulted or involved with the Phase 1 ARP project. In addition to the information provided in the Phase 1 ARP project presentation, another relevant development of note is the recent Conversation About Healthcare in Alberta event, which was hosted by the Honorable Jason Copping, Minister of Health, along with Alberta Health Services Board and executive leadership, that happened in Cold Lake and was attended by MD Council representatives and the Chief Administrative Officer on July 19th, 2022. At this event, community leaders shared with the provincial government and AHS leadership the many areas in our healthcare system in need of improvement, as well as what they felt is working well. Minister Copping informed the attendees that there will be several changes and a reorganization occurring at AHS, which will be rolling out mid-fall. Therefore, administration is recommending that council defers a decision regarding the provision of a financial contribution to the Cold Lake Regional Chamber of Commerce Phase 2 ARP project until after the provincial government announcement is made. Attached for council's review is in Appendix A is the presentation provided as a delegation by the Chamber and their representative on at the July 13th meeting. If approved, the source of funding of a financial contribution not greater than $85,000 would be sourced from the 2022 council's operating grants to industry and non-government organizations. Again, administration's recommendation is that council defers consideration of a financial contribution to this project until the October 26, 2022 regular meeting of council.
Okay, thank you. Looking for a motion, Councillor Swaggart?
Yeah, Mr. Reeve, just a question first. I'm not quite sure, why is the Cold Lake Chamber, why is this their deal? Like, I'm not sure, this is a health care thing, are they just trying to do something because nobody else will, or I'm not sure. I don't know why it's a chamber issue. So we're funding the chamber for a healthcare initiative kind of thing, right? Is that?
Through the Reeve, yes, that is the request. I recall during the presentation, there was a question on the engagement level with the health services, specifically the doctors or the medical side of that, the staff, and at this time, there had been none, which I believe is a part of the Phase 2 project. So currently, this is a chamber initiative.
So, Mr. Reeve, I'll make the motion.
Okay.
And Mr. Reeve, I would also add that I believe the city of Cold Lake has postponed the decision on this from their end until budget deliberations as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Councillor Swigert, for making the motion on behalf of council. The council defers consideration of financial contribution to the Cold Lake Regional Chamber of Commerce Phase 2 Team-Based Primary Care Alternative Relationship Plan Project until October 26, 2022, regular meeting of council. Any other discussion on this? Yeah, I don't even know why we're doing it, to tell you the truth. So, any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Oh, call for the vote. Sorry about that. Carried.
Thank you.
934. You're welcome. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
What? I did?
Sorry, could you bring up Appendix A?
Yeah.
Appendix A.
Oh,
Doesn't matter. We won.
Thanks.
I don't want nothing to do.
Pardon? Could I have the mouse and I could scroll through? Perfect.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So thank you, Reeve and Council. So before you for first reading is the new Municipal Land and Reserves Bylaw, number 1766. This is proposed to replace the previous Municipal Land and Reserves Bylaw, number 1440. And that was adopted in 2009. So it's been a little while since this has been reviewed. The intent of updating and replacing this bylaw is to continue to allow the MD the ability to properly enforce the management of land owned by the MD, such as preserved lands or other public lands. It is common for the public to utilize and interact with municipal land, and this bylaw will aid in directing what uses are allowed and which requires approval before a use or activity may begin. So starting off here on page 1, I'll start with section 1, definitions. So most of the definitions remain the same between the old and the new bylaw, so I will focus on the new additions here and any other important definitions that have changed or have relevance throughout the bylaw. So starting off with the new ones, we've added in a bylaw enforcement officer. This one was added because bylaw enforcement officer will be one of the new ways that the bylaw is enforced. So that would be any person designated by the CAO. The other way that this bylaw will be enforced will be through peace officers as well. The next new definition here is B, the chief administrative officer, just so identifying who delegates that power. D, development. So over here, this one is important because it notes that any development that is to occur on municipal land needs to coincide with the reason that land was taken. So for example, if land was taken for environmental reserve purposes, only development that pertains to that should be allowed. So we need to have some clarity on that. E, development authority, so just who approves the development. And F, encroachment, just some clarity for when things come onto our land. I would also like to bring your attention to J. Sorry, 1 second here. I've lost my mouse. So municipal land. So municipal land has changed slightly from the previous bylaw, and it plays a significant role throughout this new bylaw. So municipal land essentially means a parcel of land that is owned by the municipality. This includes, but is not limited to, walkways, municipal reserves, school reserves, municipal and school reserves, environmental reserves, and public utility lots, but excludes road allowance. This is significant as most policies refer to municipal land in some way, and this identifies what lands are included and what are not. So that's all the time I'll take on definitions here. I'll scroll down to section 2. So here you may note that section 2 is new. This section was added in order to provide the ability to the MD of Bonnyville to approve the use of municipal land that is otherwise restricted. So this means that although later on in this bylaw a use may be restricted, we do have ways of allowing it through approving a permit, putting up a sign in the area indicating the use is allowed, another bylaw permits the use, or the person is an employee or authorized agent of the MD. So this section may be small, but it's important to the function of the bylaw and allowed uses on municipal land. So I'll scroll down to section 3 here. This section is carried forward from the previous bylaw and remains relatively the same. This section provides some guidance regarding the authority of the bylaw and peace officers. So through 3.2, bylaw and peace officers may enforce this bylaw, access any municipal land or structure on municipal land, order the stop of any activity, order the restoration of any municipal land, remove any items not allowed, and engage in the notification protocol, which I will discuss later. Additionally, 3.3 was added, which allows for the enforcement of a remedy not listed within this bylaw with respects to municipal land. So this allows the MD to approach each case separately based upon the context and the severity of the issue, allowing for appropriate approaches that may not otherwise be listed in the previous bylaw. So I'll scroll down to section number 4 here. So this is the notification protocol, which I had just mentioned previously. It details the communication methods and timelines that will be followed by the MD when attempting to address an unauthorized use. So this means an initial notification will be sent to the offending party. They will have 30 days to respond. If no response is received, a second notification will be sent, and they will have 15 days to respond to the second one. And finally, if no response is received with that one, a final notification will be sent, at which point fines or other actions will be taken to address or remedy the unauthorized use. Additionally, section 4 details how notifications will be sent, so either physically delivered to the person, left at the residence, or mailed to their last known location, or delivered electronically if possible. 4.5, I'll also bring it up here in just a second.
Mr. Reed?
Yep.
Can I ask questions as you're going through this?
Absolutely.
Because it's pretty big.
Yes.
And so I just want to ask the question about 5.1, no person shall.
Yes.
And then there's a whole bunch of things they shall not do, but one was, I was park or operate a motorized vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Like it came up a few years ago where it was a community group, had their community hall, and there was an MR beside it, and they asked if they could, they were having a wedding, they wanted to park vehicles, and at the time our CAO at the time said, no, we don't want that to happen, because if you park on an MR, there's liabilities or whatever.
Yep.
So I'm asking, you don't want to be so restrictive on this that you wouldn't allow this, but how would they get a permit to do that? Or would we, like, how would people get a permit to park on an MR?
Mm-hmm. So for that one, they can come to us and ask us. In our definitions, we list agreements as well. Other options to it, under section 2, we note that they can have a sign up in place for this. So if it's a temporary thing that the MD is looking into allowing, we can put up a temporary sign indicating that parking is allowed here on municipal land. And then once, whatever that may be, however long it may be, we can then take down the sign so that it is no longer allowed there, right?
Okay, so would that have to come to council though, or would admin have some kind of regulations that they're following?
No, it would be enforced through our bylaw enforcement officers or peace officers for determining where and when we want to have that happen. So administration would decide if that would be needed. It wouldn't have to come to council each time to have.
And so how do residents actually apply then for that permit?
Well, they can come in and discuss with us, right, initially, or give us a call at any time, and then we can go through the process internally of determining if
Okay, I know you're saying that, but I just, like, if there's not a process right now that says, you know, residents go to the webpage, you can apply, it's like, you know, you're saying you're gonna do it, but where is it actually gonna be outlined? I'm not trying to get into the weeds here, I'm just,
yeah, absolutely.
You don't wanna say something and then realize, oh, we missed that. So we'll never allow people to park on an MR again, or, anyway, thanks.
Yeah.
You heard my point.
Yep. So continuing on from where I'd left off. So 4.5 notes also that the MD reserves the right to immediately issue a stop or order to comply in the event of a safety, health, or environmental concern, meaning that the notification protocol may be skipped if a severe enough issue arises. So now I'll move on to section number 5 here, which is kind of the main chunk that I'd like to go over with council here. So section number 5 details the uses and activities that are not allowed on municipal land. As I mentioned previously, though, I'd like to remind you that section 2 does allow for these uses to occur if the MD or administration has sufficient reason to allow it. So I'd like to start off with some...
If I may, Mr. Reeve, members of the council, so the question that Councillor Swigert posed, and of course it's addressed in section 2. As with everything legislative, we pass the legislation first and then we pass the regulation. I would suggest in this case the legislation would be passed, and then we'll probably, over the course of the next few months, come back to council with a policy, and that policy would give some guidance as to what areas would be approved, what areas wouldn't be approved, and what that process would look like as in many of our policies. Most of our policies grow out of some legislative requirement, some bylaw. So I will certainly be suggesting that administration would come back with a policy that would indicate how we could or could not approve certain things that would happen on municipal lands. There would be a very clear process in that policy, probably application forms, et cetera, et cetera. And if there are some things in that policy that council wants to be left to council themselves, then that would certainly be indicated in the policy as well. But I think Councillor Swigert's point is well taken, that I think at some point we'll need to create a policy around how we would approve something or how we would not approve something, as opposed to just saying, well, this is, ask Scott today and he'll tell you. That wouldn't be fair to Scott or to the applicant.
Yeah, thank you.
So continuing on here, I'd like to start off with the new items that were added from the previous, that were not in the previous, bylaw. So starting off here, I'd like to note that 5.1H is new, which regulates the sale of goods or conducting business on municipal land. 5.1M regulates hunting or trapping of animals. This relates to 5.1L, the discharge of firearms, in that we need to ensure the safety of the public from accidental discharge or walking into areas that may be dangerous with live ammunition. 5.1N is new as well and was added to address people restricting access to other public lands. So you may have noted over the years, people tend to put up fences, anything along those lines. We need a way to address that, so that has been included. 5.1R regulates the storage of materials on municipal land, which can affect the enjoyment or use of land for others. 5.1S for the removal of any structures, plants, items, or other objects. And 5.1T, the storing of recreational equipment, which has become a larger issues throughout the years. Sorry, I'll scroll down so that you can see those. And then 5.1U, hosting of private events or municipal land, on municipal land, sorry. And 5.1V, any other unauthorized activity deemed by peace officers or by law enforcement officers. So again, these are the new ones that were added in from the previous bylaw. These were added to add a little bit of flexibility regarding what issues may be deemed as inappropriate for the MD. It also kind of reflects some of the issues that we've been facing in the years since we initially adopted the previous bylaw in 2009. I won't go through each of the additional ones. However, just note that all of the other ones were carried forward from the previous bylaw and may have been slightly changed, but for the most part, they remain relatively the same.
Mr. Reid? Yes. Just a question, I like what you're doing here. The new ones, though, are they going to pose an issue for our constables right now? Because there's probably lots of MRs right now that have trailers and boat lifts and all kinds of stuff parked on them that maybe before we couldn't police, but now we can?
Absolutely. So I think what you're referring to is you're referring to grandfathering in like development or...
Well, I'm not sure if I'm actually referring to grandfathering, but I just know there's probably lots of MRs maybe around, you know, Moose Lake and Crane Lake and all the other lakes where people do store stuff.
Yeah.
And they kind of just use it as their own storage yard now. So I mean, I don't think you want to grandfather all that stuff. If it's a building that's been built, well, we deal with it, I guess. But.
So with this bylaw, they would have to come in and apply for if they were storing equipment, whatever it may be, a shed, anything along those lines, they would have to come in and apply and get approval for that. So with the adoption of this bylaw, it gives us a little bit more enforcement that we can follow up, and it gives us a process that we can follow so that if people aren't coming in and applying, that we have a process for what to do, how to notify them, and there are additional fines and stuff to kind of incentivize getting them into compliance along those lines. Additionally, I'd like to note that in response to your question here, under the MGA, the Municipal Government Act, sorry, for environmental reserve and municipal reserves and other reserves, there are only specific uses that we are allowed to us that can happen on those. So we do have to enforce what is allowed under the Municipal Government Act, what can happen on there. So if something is happening on there that isn't allowed under the MGA, we need something, a process in place to kind of bring ourselves into compliance, because if someone is using that, it does leave a little bit of a gray area in terms of what should be on there and what we should be doing as it is under our protection and our kind of control. Yeah. Hopefully that answers your question.
You brought up some more questions, but it's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Councillor Crick has a question.
Yeah, so are we adding things that aren't in the MGA? Like, for example, I'm just looking at the list of stuff that we're adding into here. Host or occupy, like under U, let's see, 5.1U, what was it? Yeah, 5.1U, host or occupy for personal or private events. So like the way I'm reading that is if somebody wanted to have a wedding and they want to pop up a little, white canvas tent, then they're not allowed to do that. They're subject to a fine for doing stuff like that.
Mhm.
Or if there's, there is federal firearms legislation and hunting legislation that, if you follow that, you should be good. I don't think we need to have in here that you can't discharge a firearm over on municipal reserve lands. If it doesn't fall within the federal, like the firearm legislation or the hunting legislation that you can't do it, then why would we restrict somebody from hunting on that land, right?
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, so I imagine there'll be a number of questions like these for a number of the uses under there. To start off with hosting, occupy or utilize the municipal land in a capacity for personal events. So with the way this bylaw works, municipal land encompasses a number of different types of land, right? So you have municipal reserve, environmental reserve, you have public utility lots, right? The definition encompasses a lot. So under certain circumstances, that may be allowed on municipal reserve, right? However, that wouldn't be allowed on environmental reserve because municipal reserve has different uses allowed to it under the MGA, whereas environmental reserve is very strict on what is allowed to it and what can be used on environmental reserve.
Mr. If I may provide some clarity. So let's, Councillor Crick asked two questions, two different scenarios. Somebody wants to put a tent up for a wedding on our MR land. I would suggest that we probably wouldn't withhold permission, but we do hold liability. So let's assume that we didn't give permission, something happened, they had their wedding, and somebody was hurt on municipal land. Guess who gets sued? It's a liability issue. The Section 2 does provide, and there is an insurance part of the ER bylaw, the ERMR bylaw, or the municipal lands bylaw, that says you can do certain things if we give permission and you provide a certain level of insurance. I believe we're talking $2 million or $5 million worth of coverage. I'm not sure what the number was. I don't have it in front of me.
So it's
$2 million. So that's part of it, is to ensure that you've got permission to do what you want to do from us, and us ensuring that the residents of the taxpayers of the municipality are held harmless in the event that something goes wrong and there's a lawsuit. The second to the shooting question. So the reason that I don't think it's a good idea to allow just anybody to hunt based as Crown land, but what if we leased out a quarter section as a grazing reserve? It's municipal land. You should be able to just go hunt on it until you end up shooting a white-faced deer, which is probably not a good idea. So that's why we could say to somebody, somebody comes in and says, I'd really like to hunt on that quarter section. I know there's nothing going on it. Can I get permission? We say, yeah, there's nothing going on it. Do you have some insurance in case something happens, in case a round were to leave the quarter section and land in somebody's barn? Or we can say, no, there's cows. We've got an active grazing lease on that land. That's the reason the bylaw has a permission required under Section 2. Otherwise, it's just anybody. And then what would define a shooting area? And I say this as a sport shooter. We can shoot on a 200-foot wide ER or MR along the lake at Crane Lake. That doesn't seem to me to be the wisest thing to allow. So I think the reason for the permission is to ensure that whatever activity is taking place, whether that be firearm related, whether that be a wedding, whether that be some other parking a car at a community hall, is to make sure that the use of that MR is compatible with what else is going on around it, and to ensure that the MD is held harmless in some way through legal liability release, otherwise known as insurance.
Mm-hmm. And sorry, to further expand upon that as well, a lot of these lands are to be maintained for public use and public access. So people hunting or discharging firearms in these areas, anybody could be walking through there through municipal reserve or environmental reserve, can be walking through there and not knowing that guns are being discharged in this area. Or that maybe, as an example, it notes traps. So if traps are laid in an area, they might not know. But environmental reserve and municipal reserve is to be maintained for public use and public access as well.
Yeah, I had a few comments. So I guess the point goes though too, if people go hunt in Crown Land, like up by Wolf Lake, there's people hunt up there, people go up there and drive their quads, people go to walk up there. And there could be, you go up there to Wolf Lake in September 15th, there's probably gonna be 20 hunters up there. And they don't all go get permission to go there and, you know, sign some kind of online form so that everybody knows where everybody is. If you're walking around with a gun, you're responsible for your own bullets kind of thing, right?
Yep.
But anyways, I guess this looks to me like we're adding red tape and adding rules to MD owned land, which I'm not really in favor of. And even in regards to our CAO's comments about being liable to be sued, if it's open for public access, do we require a $2 million liability policy for somebody to walk on that?
If I may again, so
Yeah.
Crown Land is separate from what we're discussing here. That's provincially owned. So kind of what we're talking about are smaller parcels of land, typically municipal reserve, public utility lots, right? These are generally smaller parcels of land. So if there is hunting going on here, it's within very case-by-case basis on our land, right? Crown Land isn't affected. Anything that's not owned by the municipality in terms of land, that's not included or affected by this bylaw. And then with regards to maintaining public access and liability with that, so we have to maintain public access. They have to be able to go on there, as the public has to be able to go on there. That doesn't mean that they're able to do whatever they want on that property. There's a certain list of things, as I mentioned again, under the MGA, that can happen on there. Doesn't mean that they can just walk on and start doing that. They still have to get approval for certain aspects from the MD. So if they want to come in and build something, and they want to have a building of some sort that is allowed under the MGA, they come in, they apply to us, we approve it, but we have to ensure that we're covered for that. Whereas just walking on and maintaining public access doesn't have any risk to them or to the MGA, right? Or, sorry, MD.
So you keep on referring to public access on MRs, but so is that kind of, all I really read is the number 6 there, maintenance of municipal land. So is that covered in this document, or is that more for like a policy that we would have?
No, so that would just be covered under the Municipal Government Act, so it's essentially in place already. We don't have to repeat what is in the MGA under our policies or our bylaws. So number 6 may kind of provide a little bit of reference to it. If I can go to it.
I'm just curious, I mean, we have so many MRs that are just growing in bush, right? And there's, you know, they maybe were public access to a lake at one time, but they're not anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So is there liability in not having them maintained properly?
No, so public access doesn't mean that we have to have them mowed or trees removed. For example, a good one is environmental reserve. Environmental reserve has to be maintained in its natural state. So essentially what is allowed to us for environmental reserve is that we can put stairs in if we want to, we can put in a trail if we want to. That's largely it. We can't really go in there and start altering things for environmental reserve. So public access doesn't mean that it has to be maintained a certain way.
But does it mean though that you have to have at least accessibility? Like, does it have to be somewhat cleared out?
No, not in that sense. So like, it just has to, they have to be able to walk onto the property if they want to, essentially. We can't fence it off. We can't seclude it kind of thing from the public. Most pieces that warrant some sort of maintenance of some kind, so as an example, municipal reserve within a community, can be used for green space or parks or things along those lines. Those ones are being maintained, right? Because that's the purpose for which it was taken and it's being used. Some of it might just be taken to hold on to protect the land for future use, things along those lines. So we won't be going through clearing trees or anything like that, mowing the grass kind of thing, right? So it kind of has context with the reason we're taking the land and the intended use for it as well.
Yeah, it was kind of a rebuttal to your comment. So we do have lots of, well, we've got MRs around a lot of the lakes, and what's happened in the past, though, is people that live close to them are restricting access by building fences across MRs because they want to keep their yards nice and clean or whatever, and they don't need people walking through it, but they don't realize they're actually fencing an MR because they're left natural, most of them, and so we don't really want people fencing our MRs because you want them public, right? Anyway, that's kind of part of the issue, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So do we have a list of all the MRs, like, or where we can see like a map or pictures of where they all are, so we kind of know? Because
yes,
if we're making a bylaw, and I guess if we're talking about making a bylaw, and that shows every MR we have.
All the ones in yellow.
So Shannon, she's not in here at the moment, but she is working on identifying, creating a map to identify reserves. We also have the capabilities if anyone really wanted to come in, and we can identify specific reserves along the line. So we can type in identify ER, and it'll bring up all the lands that have an ER designation to it, and we can create maps like that pretty simply. So we do have that capability, and Shannon is in the process of creating a map to identify them as well.
There was also an invitation sent out to council, I believe, for the 29th of September regarding the municipal lands inventory, which will incorporate all the ERs, MRs.
Okay.
That's the invitation that was sent out yesterday for that workshop. That's part of it, was all the ERs, MRs, and building facilities, the quarter sections we own, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. I'll be here on the 29th then. Thank you.
Okay, continue.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Reeve, just to, because I think one of the underlying questions that hasn't been asked, but I think people are wondering, how do we get these MRs? So MRs are created from a variety of reasons, but the primary one that we run into on a regular basis is from development. So every time a developer wants to subdivision or wants a multi-lot subdivision, the MGA requires that we either take 10% cash value of whatever the development is, or a 10% reserve land. So many of our developments that are kicking around, these MRs were generated through the requirement in the MGA to leave a reserve. So if you're going to have a 20-lot subdivision, for example, there's X number of acres that would have been required for you to either leave as green space in your development, or you had to stroke a check that would go into our municipal reserves. So that's where a lot of these MRs have come from. So if you're wondering why there's MRs that are in weird places, it's because the developer says, this is what I'm dedicating as an MR in this particular subdivision or in this particular development. This is the area that I'm giving, because not often do they want to write the check for the municipal reserves cash payment, but they'll leave that 10% in land instead. So we end up with these MRs, and sometimes in odd places. So that's primarily where municipal reserves come from, is from those pieces of land that are left through development.
All right. You'll have to forgive me, I kind of forgot where we left off, so I will just start here with number 6. 9.3. I'll jump all the way down then. So section 6 here, this one was brought forward, I believe, from the previous bylaw as well. This one's relatively simple. It's just noting for readers that the maintenance of municipal land will be to a standard if set out by policy if we have one. Number 7, Section 7, enforcement is also carried forward from the previous bylaw. However, it has some changes. So this section further elaborates on the enforcement actions that can be taken to address an unauthorized use or activity. So it notes that offending persons shall be held liable for the costs associated with remedying the offense. It also puts a cap, if any, on fines up to a maximum of $10,000. So later on, I will go over briefly the fines and fees that can happen, and they can accumulate up to a maximum of $10,000. And it also notes what information will be on in order to comply. So when someone does an activity, an unauthorized activity, they will be issued in order to comply if they have failed to answer the notification protocol. So the order to comply includes identifying the unauthorized development or activity, directions necessary to remedy the unauthorized activity, time by which the order must be met, notice that if the order is not met, that actions may be taken at their expense, and any fines, if any. All right, so moving on to Section 8 here, so minimum and specified penalties. This is also carried forward from the previous bylaw. This section largely addresses fine amounts again to ensure compliance and refers to Schedule A for the amounts. And as I noted, I will discuss that further once we get to that point. So Section 9 is new. This is the one that CAO referenced earlier. Section 9, insurance. This was added to protect the MD for when private development or activities are located on municipal land. So should anything happen to the development or a person while they are on the municipal land, this should protect the MD from any costs or liability. And as you'll note, it is for the amount of $2 million at the moment. However, this bylaw is still subject to change as this is only for first reading. All right, so now moving on to sections 10 through 12. So that's severability, repeal, and effective date. These sections are largely housekeeping, with section 10 ensuring that should any portion of the bylaw be found invalid, the remaining portions of the bylaw will still apply. Section 11 repeals the previous bylaw, so number 1440, and Section 12 notes the date upon which the bylaw comes into effect. So then I'll scroll down here to Schedule A. So Schedule A provides direction regarding the fines amounts for restricted activities. This largely reflects, as you'll note along the left-hand side here, all of the restricted uses and activities from Section 5. So that's what this is referring to, is the activities as noted under Section 5. Along the right here, we have the fine amounts. As I noted previously, multiple of these can be charged to a single individual. However, the maximum that can be charged to them is $10,000. So I'll briefly discuss some of the new additions here in the amounts and changes and as to why. So you'll notice that 5.1F has been increased in cost by 200. So 5.1F, discarding contaminants, herbicides and fertilizer. This, we've noted a little bit more of an increased impact on environmental concerns with that. So we've increased the cost just slightly to reflect that. 5.1H is new and will have a cost of 300. 5.1M is new and will have a cost of 300. 5.1N is new and will have a cost of 200. 5.1Q was reduced by 300. So 5.1Q, to place erect signs, essentially any bulletins, that one's relatively simple to take down, so we reduced the cost on that. And then 5.1R is new and the cost is 500. 5.1S is new and the cost is 1,000. 5.1T is new and the cost is 200. 5.1U is new and the cost is 500. And then finally 5.1B is new and the cost is up to $1,000. So this is for any other unauthorized activity. If you recall back in section 5, we added that in to provide a little bit of flexibility for the bylaw enforcement officers and peace officers in determining what is an offense in order to protect our municipal land. So we are allowed to charge up to $1,000 based upon the context or severity of the issue. So that's why that one was in there as well. So with that, should this bylaw receive first reading, administration will begin preparations and any changes as needed as well. And this will come back at a future date for council. With that, administration is recommending that bylaw number 1766, being a bylaw of the Municipal District of Bonnyville, number 87, to regulate the use and development of municipal land and reserves, be given first reading. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sawyer.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to go to first reading, but I do have a question. And the question is about the liability insurance. So if a resident wants to set up a lemonade stand, or a resident wants to have a tent set up for something, is there, we don't want it to be so restrictive that no one could ever afford to do anything on it. So do we have ideas what it would cost them for a 1 week liability insurance of $2 million? And then my other question to that is, could they actually do it through the MD? Could they, pay through the MD and use whoever we use for insurance? Just to simplify it for residents, because I can guarantee a lot of people say, I don't know what to do and I can't afford that or whatever, but without knowing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we at least have some guidelines or whatever, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Through the reeve to council, I guess the simple answer to both questions is no and no. I have no idea what it would cost. It would be dependent on the size of the event, whether it's a lemonade stand. The $2 million is the number we currently use. For example, any business that takes place on MD property right now, the ice cream stand, I believe they're $2 million in liability at the old public safety building. So what it would cost is entirely dependent on the activity that's taking place. And we have no way to self-insure that. They would have to have their own insurance policy. They would hold the MD harmless in the event that something happened.
Yeah, it wasn't a great answer though, was it? Because it may be that we may be limiting the MRs to nobody using them for anything. And that's all I'm saying is I want to make sure we're not so restrictive. And maybe it's not. Maybe it's cheap. Maybe you can get, $50 for insurance for a week, but unless we know that, I'd hate to kind of stick that to everyone.
Through the reeve, just further to clarify, this is specifically, it isn't just for the MRs or the ERs. It's all municipal land. So currently, for example, when we have requests from a resident to hold a wedding reception at one of our campgrounds, we do have a process in place, an agreement process in place, where we do allow certain special events to happen or special things, but it all depends on the location and the situation at hand. So there are already procedures in place to accommodate certain special requests, and then here the new section 2 also allows for that. So the agreements that it refers to, or the permits that you could choose to apply through or apply for, there are some of those already in place. We will definitely, as the CAO had suggested, formalize that a bit into actual policies, a special event booking policy that is in the works as well, to just again add clarity so the public know what are the process that they can go through in order to get around the restrictions in certain situations.
And I think the point that Ms. Kimball just made regarding, this isn't, I know we're kind of stuck on ERMR. This is not just about ERMR. This is about all municipal lands. I'll give you a classic example. We are forcing the Bonnyville Flying Club to have liability insurance for their fuel tanks at the Bonnyville Airport, at our airport. They're selling fuel. If they sell bad gas and somebody takes off on their small single engine aircraft and And it turned, so we're forcing them to have insurance, and that insurance will cost us at the Flying Club probably several $1,000s a year that'll be added onto the price of fuel. We have to have those protections, otherwise, if we're found to be having given a spot to sell fuel and that fuel is bad and an airplane crashes, we have to have some protection. So I think this runs the gamut from, you know, the kids who want to have their lemonade stand on the ER at the beach right through to selling aviation fuel. And I think so I think what we're looking for when we create these bylaws is some balance between anarchy and some liability protection. And so somewhere in there that's what we're looking for, is balance.
Yeah.
Sorry, if I could touch on that a little bit further here as well. I would just like to, I know it's not on the screen anymore, but I will discuss it here. I have it in front of me. So Section 9 insurance also notes that any person required by the municipal district of Bonnyville. So for the wording kind of gives a little bit of leeway to the MD and to administration, or as Al mentioned, to council if you guys so decide, on how we decide and who and what requires insurance. So obviously someone just walking onto municipal land, they're not required to have insurance. So that's why the wording is in there, so that we can have a little bit of flexibility with that determination.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you, Councilor Swager, for making the motion on behalf of council that, excuse me, bylaw number 1766 being a bylaw municipal district of Bonnyville number 87 to regulate the use and development, excuse me, of municipal land and reserves to be given first reading. Any discussion on this? Yes, Councilor Crick.
So I guess I would feel more comfortable passing this after this 29th September, after we kind of go through what the MD lands really are. It seems to me like we're putting a bunch of rules on lands that I'm not really personally familiar with what they actually are, even, other than it's apparently to all MD lands, and it sounds like there's lots of extra requirements and lots of exceptions to be made based on, like, if it's just you said because it applies to MD campgrounds as well, but obviously almost everything that we do on campgrounds is not allowed in here, so that's obviously an exception at campgrounds.
Through the Reeve, our plan is to present as first reading here, hold the workshop on the municipal lands, and then following that, come for second reading. And then that way, any direction we receive from council during that municipal lands workshop, we can integrate and amend the bylaw currently in its form.
Just for first reading, yeah. Okay. There's room, yes.
So I just want to get some clarity. So are you saying that you have to get permits now to do, like, for example, the lemonade stand? I don't want to be a part of an MD that charges anyone money to put up a lemonade stand on an MR, right? So, I mean, do we have clarity on that? Is that all in here, or is there still some gray area there?
Sorry. So if I can address some of those questions here. So previously, the campground one, I'd just like to note that campgrounds would have received development permits already, so that gets carried forward. They're already approved. They don't, it's almost like being grandfathered in. They already have their approval and they kind of carried forward. So they aren't restricted in that sense because they already meet this bylaw. Regarding lemonade stands, so certain uses along those lines, right, simple little things like that, aren't restricted under Section 5, right? Like we aren't saying under Section 5, no, how to put it, no childhood activities are allowed under there, right? So certain simple things like that can still occur. That's not being restricted by this bylaw. It's just the things under Section 5 that we think require a little bit of input from the MD in determining and ensuring safety for for the public, essentially, when they're on our land, and ensuring that we have protection for the MD itself. So certain uses are allowed.
It says sell or offer for sale any food, drink, or merchandise.
Well, through the reeve to Councillor Scarson and the rest of the council, it has to do with scope. If a couple of little kids put up a table and they sell lemonade at 10 cents a glass, I don't think anybody here in administration cares. But if somebody rolls in and opens up a beach bar at Crane Lake on MR land, I think it has to do with scope at that point. It's I mean, we can be, yes, technically the lemonade stand would be violating the bylaw. But there's all kinds of violations going on bylaws every day that we just turn a blind eye to. But if somebody goes to the other extreme and again opens up a beach bar and they have a tiki bar at Crane Lake, well then I think then the bylaw kicks in, and then we say, listen, you need to apply for permission, you need to provide insurance, you need to provide us how you're going to do that in a method that's safe and still allows access to the MR. A couple of little children who are selling 10-cent lemonade is not restricting access, it's not creating a liability hazard to the MD, and I think for us administratively, the question always becomes, when does it rise to the level that it could be libelous? So a beach bar with people drinking alcohol at the beach and then somebody falls in the water and drowns, we've given permission for it. If we don't have those things in place that have given us the insurance, et cetera, and the release, you know, the waiver of liability and the held harmless, now we have a legal situation on our hand that we don't with the lemonade. So I think it all has to do with scope, and I think there's got to be some reasonableness in terms of what we would consider, maybe a 10-year-old that they're renting Frisbees, and comes with a box load of Frisbees and rents Frisbee for $1 for the afternoon. I don't care. But somebody going out there and renting Sea-Doos, yeah, we probably now have an interest.
So who makes that determination? Is that going to be you or Esther, or who's that?
Well, I guess part of that will come through policy that we've already discussed a little bit, but also part of it is just having some faith that the administration is going to make decisions that are based on common sense. Right now, we're not doing anything. Like, I mean, we have an ER bylaw today that restricts all kinds of activities very similar to what this bylaw will do, and I don't think your phones are ringing off the hook where little children with lemonade stands are complaining they can't have their lemonade stands. This is just an enhancement and an improvement to the current ER bylaw. We have issues on our ERs and our MRs that I think are significantly greater than the lemonade stand. We've got ERs and MRs where you can hardly walk because boat lifts and boat launches and boat docks are absolutely cluttering our ERs and our MRs. They're actually, I think, in many cases, a safety hazard, those are our bigger issues with people storing their private property on municipal land. I think the lemonade stand is an interesting conversation because it could lead to a much bigger commercial enterprise. But we've done exactly the same thing with the ice cream stand at the public safety building. They had to have a lease and they have to have insurance. And it's an ice cream stand. It goes to scope. If it's a commercial operation trying to generate a profit, then I believe that then they have the means and the wherewithal to provide an insurance, to provide us with a hold harmless that the MD needs, so we don't end up shelling out of our pocket or out of our insurer's pocket for potential libelous situations.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, just to touch on what Al said there as well, he kind of hit that one on the nail on the head there. It's very similar to your own personal property, right? You go up and set up something small for kids there. We don't enforce that. We don't enforce lemonades to come down just because they're putting it up on their residential property, right? And even though we have areas designated for commercial, so I think as Al said, context it plays a key role on these smaller things like that.
And we can certainly enshrine that in some policy. We can find wording in policy to separate those very small, innocuous from the much larger. That's just a matter of trying to find the right wording in a policy.
Like Al and I were at a place the other day, there's all these boat lifts. What if a bunch of kids went up and hit a lever and something came down and crushed a kid? Like, that's our bigger concern here than a lemonade stand. We're way off And we can go through this, you know, another date. This is just first reading, so we can really, you know, if you want to really study this, you can definitely study it and, you know, mark down what really concerns you, and then the next time we hash it out here on the 29th or whatever, you can ask some more questions, right?
Yeah.
All right, any other discussion on this? No, I'm going to call for the vote then.
Can, oh. What would happen if it doesn't pass first reading right now?
Then it's dead.
She's dead.
If a bylaw does not pass first reading, it's dead.
That guy would not be happy.
We've been, and so council, particularly the newer councilors are aware, we've been asked by council for the last 2 years to have a new ER-MR bylaw. So, you know, it's past first reading, but we've been asked for this bylaw. This has been a very specific request. The Deputy Reeve would certainly speak to it if he was here. And I've had several conversations with him and other councillors who wanted the new ER-MR bylaw. It can certainly be amended to make council more comfortable with the contents, but this has been a request of the last council and this council.
Yes. Okay, thank you. That was carried. 9.35. Morning, or good afternoon again.
Hello. So we're at the bylaw 1804, correct? Let's make sure I got the right one. Yeah. So
Yes.
bylaw 1804 for the Ardmore Area Structure Plan. Administration has been working on a review and update of the Ardmore Area Structure Plan to ensure that the plan is consistent with the Municipal Government Act, current practices, municipal policies, and community aspirations. Administration is proposing bylaw number 1804 for first reading, which will repeal and replace the previous bylaw number 1301, the Ardmore Area Structure Plan, which was passed in 2004. The review and update of the Ardmore ASP was initiated in March of 2021 with assistance from the community consulting firm Urban Systems. Data was compiled and a draft ASP was completed for public engagement. On June 28th of this year, an in-person public engagement was scheduled and completed. The amended Ardmore ASP reflects input from the community focused on the following themes. First, strengthen the main street and look for opportunities to encourage more business opportunities. Second, to leverage and build on the community amenities and facilities. 3, to retain the small town feel. And 4, to maintain a focused vision when considering new growth and development opportunities. If council does approve first reading for the bylaw today, administration would like to schedule the required public hearing. Therefore, administration is recommending that bylaw number 1804, being a bylaw of the Municipal District of Bonnyville, number 87, to adopt the Ardmore Area Structure Plan, be given first reading, and furthermore, that council approves September 14th as the public hearing date.
Okay, thank you. Looking for a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept option 1.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sipchick. I'm making a motion on behalf of council that bylaw number 1804, being a bylaw of the Municipal District of Bonnyville, number 87, to adopt the Ardmore Area Structure Plan, be giving first reading. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Okay, that's carried. Looking for a motion now to approve September 14, 22 as... Would anyone like to make that motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Swigert, for making the motion on behalf of council, that council approve September 14, 2022 at 10 a.m. as the date and time for the bylaw number 1804, Ardmore Area Structure Plan bylaw public hearing. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Carried, thank you. We're on to 936.
So we have bylaw number 1805, which is the Cherry Grove Area Structure Plan. Administration has been working on a review and update of the Cherry Grove Area Structure Plan to ensure that the plan is also consistent with the Municipal Government Act, current practices, municipal policies, as well as the community aspirations. Administration is proposing bylaw number 1805 for first reading, which will repeal and replace the current Hamlet of Cherry Grove ministerial order that was established in 1988 pursuant to the Municipal Government Act, Section 135. The review and update of the Cherry Grove ASP was initiated in March of 2021 with assistance as well from the community consulting firm of Urban Systems. Data was compiled, a draft ASP was completed for public engagement, which was held on July 27th of this year. The amended Cherry Grove ASP reflects input from the community focused on the following themes. The first is maintaining the rural and natural qualities of the community. The second, to explore opportunities to accommodate businesses that support the growth of the community. Third, maintaining housing options that provide opportunities for citizens to age in place. Continue to support the growth and expansion of community facilities that contribute to the sustainability of the hamlet, and leverage community facilities and natural areas to retain and build community events and activities. If Council does approve first reading for this bylaw today, administration would also like to schedule the required public hearing. We are recommending that bylaw number 1805, being a bylaw of the MD of Bonnyville, number 87, to adopt the Cherry Grove Area Structure Plan, be given first reading, and furthermore, that Council also approves September 14th as the date and time for the public hearing.
Thank you. Looking for a motion, thank you.
I'll move first reading, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kraviak, for making the motion that, on behalf of Council, that bylaw 1805, being a bylaw of the Municipal District of Bonnyville, number 87, adopt Cherry Grove Area Structure Plan to be given first reading. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Carried, thank you. Looking for another motion.
I'll make a motion for September 14 public hearing.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sipchik, making a motion on behalf of Council that Council approves September 14th, 2022 at 10 a.m. as the date and time for bylaw number 1805, Cherry Grove Area Structure Plan, public hearing. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Thank you, that's carried. On to 937.
So subdivision authority officer appointment. Administration adopted bylaw number 1795, the subdivision authority bylaw, on April 13th of this year. As per the Municipal Government Act, as well as the subdivision authority bylaw 1795, Council is required to appoint a subdivision authority officer by resolution. The subdivision authority officer's responsibilities and functions include ensuring applications, notices, and decisions of the subdivision authority are provided to such persons as the Act and associated regulations require, signing orders, decisions, approvals, notices, and other items given by the subdivision authority on its behalf, preparing and maintaining a file for each application made, including a record of decision for municipal records, as well as undertaking any additional responsibilities and functions delegated by the subdivision authority. Administration is proposing to appoint, by resolution of Council, the position of Development Officer as the municipal's subdivision authority officer, rather than naming an individual. Appointing the subdivision authority officer in this manner is consistent with the MD's current process for appointing the development authority as well. Therefore, administration is recommending that Council appoints the position of Development Officer as the subdivision authority officer for the Municipal District of Bonnyville, number 87, effective August 24th, 2022.
Thank you. Just looking for a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Crick, for making the motion on behalf of Council that Council appoints the position of Development Officer as a Subdivision Authority Officer for the Municipal District of Bonnyville, number 87, effective August 24th, 2022. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Carried, thank you.
Thank you.
938. Thanks, Lisa. Good afternoon, Matt.
Good afternoon, Council. All right, so I'm here to speak to you guys about a proposed dock information here for Chicken Hill MD Park, Chicken Hill Lake MD Park. As per request, Councillor Kubiak, administration has prepared some information for Council's consideration regarding a proposed boat dock to be supplied and installed by the MD of Bonnyville at Chicken Hill Lake MD Park, boat launch access point. Discussion on benefits and disadvantages. The administration has prepared the following boat dock information in line with the same configuration as other MD docks currently installed at specific locations in the within the MD of Bonnyville. The size proposed would be the overall platform would be 80 inches wide by 30 feet long with a 3-foot by 20-foot gangway leading up to the larger dock platform. The benefits having this dock installed at Chicken Hill Lake would give MD residents and campground guests the opportunity to access their watercraft safely and more conveniently. It would also provide and allow safe wheelchair access to watercrafts if required. Disadvantages would be additional annual operating costs would be incurred by the MD. Reference to the strategic plan would be goal number 2, enhance safety in the community, and goal number 4, enhance livability in the community. The reference to the provincial federal legislation to add a new boat dock at Chicken Hill Lake MD Park will not require provincial or federal environmental approvals. However, the MD is required to apply for a seasonal dock temporary field authorization from Alberta Environment and Parks. The costs and source of funding. The cost of the dock proposed with the installation would be $22,000. This expense is not included in the 2022 municipal budget. Administration recommended action that Council directs administration to bring back additional information regarding a boat dock installation project at Chicken Hill Lake MD Park for Council consideration during the 2023 municipal budget deliberations.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Reeve. Thank you, Mr. Reeve. Yeah, I had a call last year about a boat dock, and then the guy phoned me this spring. He says, "Where's my boat dock?" Well, we didn't even put it through council, so I said I would look into this. So I'll make the motion for number 1, Mr. Reeve, to bring back additional information. So what would that additional information be?
Through the Reeves, Councillor Kubiak, we have most of the information we really need, actually. I mean, it's we already know the size of the dock that we propose and the cost. So
we could just bring it back for budget in the fall then, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so number 1 will cover that. Okay,
Yes,
thank you, Mr. Reeve.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kraviak, for making a motion on behalf of council. The council directs administration to bring back additional information regarding a boat dock installation project at Chicken Hill Lake MD Park for council's consideration during the 2023 municipal budget deliberations. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm in support of that for sure. I just hope that it doesn't get put in before Vezu does, that's all.
Well, is Vezo a bigger dock?
Much bigger.
Well, then you got to put Chicken Hill Lake first.
Any other discussion? I'll call for the vote then.
Mr. Reeve, I'm just going to ask, while you're up there, we had budgeted to move the Vezo Beach dock to Crane Lake and build a bigger dock at Vezo, and those got taken out of the budget. I didn't realize that, the Reeve didn't realize that, nobody seemed to realize it, but do we have to put them back into a budget for 2023, or
Yes.
can you tell me what's happening?
Yes, they were, council removed them from the budget at budget deliberation last year. So if council wants those back in the budget, now there is some things happening at Vezo Beach that were a project, the boat launch, et cetera, and we just got information late yesterday on some tenders. There'll be a report coming to council on the 14th. But depending on what happens at Vezo, there'll be a whole bunch of dominoes in terms of what could happen somewhere else. But yeah, they would all have to come back for budget deliberations.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Scarson?
Just to clarify, so you're saying that we took it out of budget, out of the last year's budget?
Not Vezo Beach. What was taken out of last year's budget was the Crane Lake docks specifically.
Oh.
Yeah, Vezo Beach remained as a project, and I believe we just received the tenders. Engineering took quite a while. There was provincial approvals that were quite a while, and we just literally yesterday, and I don't even have the numbers, but we just literally yesterday got the tender results back, and that'll be coming to council for some discussion because I understand it's well over budget.
So what was out was the cost of moving the dock?
Yeah, the cost of moving the dock and the new docks at Vezo, and then those Vezo docks had been talked about originally going over to Crane Lake, but until Vezo has new docks or council decides to spend the money on the new docks at Vezo, there is no funding available to put docks at Crane Lake.
We're good? Thank you. 9.4. Oh, yeah, we carried.
6-0.
We carried. Yeah.
Don't tell him that.
It carried in red. Yes. Yeah, sure. We're going to take a 5-minute break. It might end up to be 10 minutes.